vacations. We need blue strips for all the time we spend waiting. We gon' kill for what we owe, Joe, we not playing. Mr. President, I think it's time we get paid. I watch all of my people die. Why your people try to act like we commit crime? Get killed on TV, got our kids scared to go outside. It's time you pick a side. Before we turn this bitch up, Mr. President, better fall in line. Yeah, we don't need loans, we need what we owe. We need police to stop killing sisters inside their home. And when it happened and we burn this bitch down, they need to stop telling us we was wrong. Hey, and we need unity. We need the government to stop bringing drugs in our community. They better stop playing, we not the ones. You got guns and we got guns. We kill if you play with our funds. Yeah, how we supposed to restore when they won't give us more? When they got knees on our necks when we walk out the store. How we heal when they go to the park, kill a 12-year-old boy for killing, we ready for war. Yeah, and we need reparations, we need vacations, we need blue strips for all the time we spend waiting. We gon' kill for what we owe, Joe, we not playing. Mr. President, I think it's time we get paid.
Peace, greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, AKA Mr. Just the Facts. Family, of course, you know, click the like button, share the video out. Today we're gonna delve into the Freedmen's Bank Forum. I don't know where my glasses is. Hold on one second. We're gonna get into the Freedmen's Bank Forum, and you know, we're gonna watch these people divvy up all of this money, and I'm curious to see how this money gets allocated during this conference. So, because last year when they held the forum, I listened as Hispanic representatives got up and they spoke to how these monies that are put into this forum, if you will, and allocated through various means like CDFIs, et cetera, have helped Hispanic communities. And when it was time for our people to get up there, they were freedmen too, it became political messaging. Maya Wiley, MSNBC contributor, was up there talking about don't say gay. I believe the brother's name is John Hope Bryant. He got up there talking about his mother's home in Martha's Vineyard or something. I was like, what am I listening to? What am I listening to right now? So, you know, we're going to stream the bank forum and we're going to listen. It's particularly because it's being, well, because they're using the term Freedmen, of course, but because it's in Raleigh this time. They're doing it in Raleigh. And so, you know, while we wait for this stream to begin, let me see, can I theater mode, get all the rest of that stuff out the way. Shout out to the fam. I see everybody in the building. BTP Riri is on deck. Sister Fate XX, what's going on, sis? Man, I've been meaning to hit you up as well. I want to get some things done on the channel. Swig 13, what's going on, fam? Coop for real.
Thank you so much for joining the Treasury Department.
Okay, they're starting early.
Freedmen's Bank Summer Symposium. If you've attended this event in the past, or if you've watched it in the past, you know that we typically hold this in the cash room at the Treasury Department. Marbled walls, tough security. And this year we decided to do something different. We decided to bring this conversation outside those marbled halls and here to Raleigh, North Carolina, which is home to one of the original branches of the Freedmen's Bank. I think this is an opportunity for us to put a really fine point on the whole purpose of this convening. It is to uplift the rich history, the original vision and purpose of the Freedmen's Bank, to build generational wealth to formerly enslaved people, the original freed men and women of our country.
Okay.
But also to
the original freed men and women
business and the role specifically that the Treasury Department has in making sure that we don't lose sight of that vision. our conversation that we'll have here today is not to say that all that work is done, far from it, but to continue a conversation about how we work together, not to take our eye off that ball. And I can't think of any place better than the hallowed ground here of Shaw University. I want to extend a thank you to Dr. Dillard for your gracious hosting, to Ms. Pleasure, so many of your staff that have really been incredible in leading up to this event. And I also want to thank Operation Hope and our co-host, John Hope Bryant. You'll hear from him a little bit later, who's been at the forefront of keeping the history and vision of the Freedmen's Bank in our national consciousness. This afternoon, you'll hear about some of the tangible ways that the Biden-Harris administration is investing in Black institutions to make sure that we are furthering that North Star. And to kick off that conversation, I'm excited to welcome Dr. Dillard to the stage. I think she's well known in this room. Her academic accolades are easy to find. I am not going to recite them all here. What I want you to know, and again, it's well known, and Dr. Dillard, everybody here knows, your transformational leadership, your vision around the way that education and service can transform a community, what it can do for young women of color, for Black women, and you stand up and fight for that every day. Three different master degrees from HBCUs. I mean, again, I said I wasn't going to go through all of her academic accolades again, but her championship of HBCUs is continuing to transform and reshape the academic landscape of the power of our educational institutions. Dr. Dillard is preserving Shaw University's leadership and the legacy with an eye towards the future. And I'm really excited that she is here to open the Freedmen's Bank Summer Symposium. Dr. Dillard.
First of all, it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to the Shaw University. It is such an honor for us to host this amazing forum. And I would like to thank U.S. Treasury for considering Shaw University to be worthy of such a great event. Now, there is some reasons that you would imagine that this forum would be at Shaw University. First of all, we are a liberal arts education institution, and we all know that for African Americans, education was the route to the middle class. And so had HBCUs not existed, I'm not sure, we would have made the progress that has been made up until this point. A little background. Freedmen's Bank and Savings was founded in 1865 for the purpose of lending and helping newly freed, formerly enslaved people to have an opportunity to build a foundation for living when you were freed without resources. And when you think about that, that's monumental. Interestingly enough, Shaw University was founded December 1st, 1865, as the first historically Black college and university in the Southern United States. Now that is significant because slavery was more impactful in the Southern United States, and to be an institution that was on the forefront of that work when just weeks earlier, it had been against the law to teach enslaved people to read and write. So the ability to participate in the betterment of formerly enslaved people has been Shaw's mission since its founding. And so today, to be able to host this amazing forum is, exceptional for us, because we have been doing the work for over 158 years. And we have been doing the lift without the resources that go with the lift. But we're not complaining. Just like those of you who are starting small businesses that are represented in this room and agencies that support them, you still have to do the work because the outcome is worth it. And I just want to tell you that Shaw University is actively involved. Back in March, we hosted over 1,000 people on the campus who were potential first-time home buyers as part of a program funded through HUD. We were the first historically Black college and university to receive the CEO Roundtable on Cancer Gold Standard. Why? Because cancer disproportionately affects the folks in our community, and we wanted to be on the forefront of changing that. In addition, in partnership with Carolina Small Business Development Fund, we have an Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center here on campus. We certify, train, and provide the necessary support for small business, especially African-American small businesses. So we're still doing the work, but I'm most excited to talk about the future-facing Shaw University. We are undertaking, thanks to the rezoning approval by the city of Raleigh, creating the Shaw U District. And we believe that we can do that and help to promote businesses, retail, housing for the people that have surrounded Shaw University for over 158 years. So I'm excited about what we're going to hear here today. I'm excited about new partners. I'm excited about what we can do to continue to grow the North Carolina economy, the US economy, and make sure that it's equitable in its occurrence. So thank you so much for being here. And if you need anything, please let any of us know. Thank you.
It is now my great pleasure to introduce somebody else who needs no introduction in this room. So Governor, forgive me, I will also forego all of your great accolades because I think you are well known in this crowd. Governor Cooper.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. Dr. Dillard, it's very powerful to hear you talk about the Freedmen's Bank and Shaw University, and glad to be here with you. You know, not only does she have more degrees than a thermometer, she's also just been elected as the head of the North Carolina Independent Colleges and Universities Association, which is a big deal. I told her back there she gets to tell Duke and Wake Forest what to do now. So we also have with me here my Director of Public Engagement, Tracy Lovett. And there's Tracy. And we also have the Chief Deputy Secretary of the Department of Commerce, Jordan Wichard, who is with us today. I wish that I could stay and hear this amazing conversation. We were having the start of it back there in the back room for about 10 minutes. I only had a small window today, but I wanted to be here because I know how important this subject is, and I'm gonna have to leave after I speak, but I just want to say thank you. I know Representative James Robertson is here today as well, and I think Congresswoman Fushi is going to be here as well. I want to thank you all for joining us today to uplift and celebrate the wealth building opportunities that we want to provide for everybody. It's always great to welcome our friends from the Biden-Harris administration to North Carolina, including Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, Wally Adeyemo, whom I talked with earlier and who will be talking with you soon. And you're going to hear from them. But we want to welcome them to the annual Freedmen's Bank Forum, and glad that they set it up right here in Raleigh. There are historic reasons to do that, and it's fantastic. You know, thinking about what Dr. Dillard said, I think the vision for the Freedmen's Bank was really steeped in morality and equity by providing critical support and services to those who had just been freed from slavery without resources in the midst of systemic racism. And I think that it is in the same vein of striving for equality that the Biden-Harris administration has invested substantial resources to enhance and support small businesses, startups, and entrepreneurships, particularly in disadvantaged communities. That vision has guided us here in North Carolina too. We're experiencing a period of extraordinary economic success and growth in our state. We've set records for new business startups. We're the third fastest growing state in the country. For the 5th year in a row, North Carolina is ranked one of the top 3 states to do business by CNBC. It is my mission here for our state, as it is of the Biden-Harris administration, that this economic growth should be shared by everyone, and that everyone has an opportunity to build prosperity in their communities. My administration has made contracting with historically underutilized businesses a priority, working to break through those systemic things that are hard for those businesses to break through. Contracting with historically underutilized businesses has been we've set goals and we've set metrics, and we have improved significantly in our state contracts in those arenas. And we're making it possible for more minorities and women-owned businesses to do business with the state of North Carolina. It's working. What we're also doing is saving taxpayers money. You grow the pool of people who can bid on projects, it's a positive thing. And it frustrates me to no end that people want to try to cut off these opportunities of bringing more people into the system to be able to get these opportunities. When you think about the major growth in hub contracting for construction, goods, and services, you know we're making progress. And the number of hub certified firms has doubled since I became governor. We're also partnering with the Biden-Harris administration to provide access to capital to underserved businesses and overlooked entrepreneurs. My administration has been proud to partner with the Treasury Department and the North Carolina Rural Center to deploy more than $91 million through the state Small Business Credit Initiative across 3 programs since it was reauthorized and expanded under President Biden's American Rescue Plan Act in 2021. Through the North Carolina Venture Capital Program, NC Invest, which I announced last spring along with Vice President Harris when we were in Durham on historic Black Wall Street, we've dedicated more than $30 million to support 10 venture capital funds investing in early stage, high growth small businesses in North Carolina, with more than half of those funds going to those who are socially or economically disadvantaged. And through our capital access program, we've expanded the lines of credit for small businesses to help entrepreneurs who might not otherwise have access to credit, but do have solid business plans that'll work. And to make sure that these startups and entrepreneurs can thrive, we have to make sure that we're creating the training and the workforce for them. That's why we're so grateful for our strong HBCUs like Shaw University here in Raleigh. One of my greatest recruiting pitches when I'm going after these companies, I say North Carolina has more four-year HBCUs than any other state in the country, and we have more HBCU students than any other state in the country. And it is why, one of the main reasons why, we have one of the strongest, most dedicated, skilled, diverse workforces in the country, and why businesses continue to come here and want to do business here. We understand the value of our HBCUs and the critical role they play in education. And it's why that we have continued to support HBCUs through our internship program, our grant programs, many state agencies, and with our economic development and recruitment. We've also had a number of budget proposals for HBCU funding. Some of them have been funded, some of them have not been, but we need to continue to work. We have to support education from cradle to career if we're going to make all of this work. Invest heavily. It's going to be critical. Together, I think that we can ensure that these resources translate into wealth building opportunities and expanded economic prosperity for everyone. It's great to be here in Raleigh today, Mayor Baldwin. Good to see you, and always glad to see that you're here. I hope that this forum goes well. I know it will, and let's leave inspired to continue the work that we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Governor Cooper. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce you, your own mayor, Mayor Baldwin, who I learned also makes a mean Manhattan among many other talents.
Janice was teasing me because she said that she saw that I was a celebrity bartender last night at a new bar that had opened called Neighborhoods. And I said, well, it wasn't that difficult because that's how I put myself through college. So, you know, if it wasn't for that, and actually I made more money tending bar and waiting on tables than I did in my first job as a journalist. So, yeah, that'll tell you everything you need to know. I probably make more money doing that than being mayor as well. So, hey, next career. Yeah. So anyhow, I just want to, we just had a very great conversation amongst partners and folks talking about the importance of focusing on eliminating inequity, and really rising our Black and Latino-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. It really has been so challenging in this environment where we see legislators and others fighting it against DEI efforts. This needs to be our time when we're really investing in our DEI efforts. And I want to thank the Treasury Department for coming here and selecting Raleigh to tell this important story. You know, you heard from Governor Cooper the things we're working on. We have, as a city, have done a disparity study. We're working really hard to elevate and include MWBs and ensuring that everybody has that equal chance. And quite frankly, I can't think of a better place than the historic campus of Shaw University for us to be having this important and critical discussion. I just want to say, too, thank you to some of the partners we have here today, the North Carolina Rural Center, M&F, and Self-Help. They make a difference as well and help elevate the discussion and the focus. But most importantly, too, I think all of you showing up says something. It says this is important. And I will tell you, aside from tending bar and waiting on tables. I've also worked for 3 MWB firms, and my job was to help elevate them. When I started working with, we had revenue of $125,000, and by the time I left, it was almost $60 million. That was my job to help them grow, and I've done that 3 times now, and I believe in it. And it's amazing when you have the commitment, what can be done. I'm also a co-founder of a nonprofit that is now under the Chamber of Commerce. It's called Innovate Raleigh, but it was founded to help entrepreneurs in all spaces really con- like get together, build community, and tell our story. It was interesting because when we started this, we knew we had an entrepreneurial community. We couldn't find them. It was like, where are you? So we decided to do this innovation summit, and we thought maybe 50 people would show up. We had over 200 people come, and we had to turn people away. And that told us this is important. It's important in our community. The entrepreneurs who showed up, it was like, okay, this needs to be done. So that is in my heart. It really matters to me how we proceed and how we continue to lead on this. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion, the leadership, and the partnership. And I'm going to say partnership again, because this doesn't get done without all of us working together. Thank you.
I realized when I jumped up here, I did a thing I do a lot, which is I get excited and I just start talking. And I failed to tell you that my name is Janice Bowdler. I serve as the counselor on racial equity to Secretary Yellen. And I'm now so pleased that you will get to hear from our secretary, who sends her regards. Unfortunately, she's not able to be here, but I am excited you'll get to hear from our deputy secretary shortly. Secretary Yellen.
I'm excited to have the opportunity to welcome you to the Freedmen's Bank Summer Symposium, which I'm very glad Deputy Secretary Wally Adeyemo and many of my colleagues are able to attend in person. The Freedmen's Bank Forum was named for the Freedmen's Savings and Trust Company, commonly called Freedmen's Bank. It was a private corporation chartered by the U.S. government in 1865 to provide newly emancipated Black Americans with financial tools for building security and wealth, and was located where part of the Treasury Department now stands. Unfortunately, the financial panic of 1873, mismanagement, and other challenges led to the bank's closure, leaving tens of thousands of formerly enslaved people with millions in losses instead of their newly established savings. Under this administration, Treasury has worked to realize the unfulfilled promise of Freedmen's Bank. It's clear that the economy has historically not worked well for Black families, communities, and businesses. We're committed to changing this. All Americans deserve opportunity, and unlocking the potential of those who have been overlooked and underestimated is essential to increasing our country's economic strength. Let me highlight just a few of our many efforts, starting with our historic investments in financial institutions and funds with a track record of investing in Black communities. We've invested more than $8.5 billion in community financial institutions, including $1.4 billion in Black-owned and Black-majority shareholder depository institutions. I understand that later today, you will hear from M&F Bank, the second oldest Black-owned bank in the country. Chartered by the state of North Carolina in 1907, as part of a thriving business community in Durham. The bank received $80 million from Treasury's Emergency Capital Investment Program, and additional funds from corporate partners through the Economic Opportunity Coalition. Treasury's efforts extend far beyond access to capital, including, for example, the generational investments we're making at the Internal Revenue Service that will make it easier for families, businesses, and neighborhoods to access tax credits to get more breathing room in their household budgets. We've done a lot in the past few years, but we're well aware that we still have a long way to go. And this event is another step forward. Let me thank our hosts, Shore University and Operation Hope, for making this event possible. I was very glad to host the Freedmen's Bank Forum at the Treasury Department in Washington, D.C. last year. Hosting the Freedmen's Bank Summer Symposium here in Raleigh, North Carolina, is a powerful reminder that our work spans the country and that it must be driven by communities and grounded in their needs. Again, welcome to the Freedmen's Bank Summer Symposium. I hope it serves as an opportunity for you to hear about the breadth and depth of ongoing work and to recommit to the work ahead.
You know, my job as an MC is pretty easy when I'm continue to introduce people that really need no introduction. And our next speaker, John Hope Bryant, who is the CEO of Operation Hope, is another one of these people. John, I want to thank you for your partnership as a co-host here. If you're not familiar with John's bio, because once again, I'm not going to go through all of John's accolades either, I encourage you to head to a bookstore, to any place that you listen to podcasts, and you will hear John dropping knowledge that is so essential to the work that we all do. But I'm happy to welcome him to the stage today in a special role as the holder and keeper of a shared vision and an aspiration on how we continue to build intergenerational wealth in Black communities, and the way in which that is going to spark and sustain our economy for everybody. John has been at the forefront of this work. He is a keeper of the history of Freedmen's Bank and a propeller of the mission and vision of Freedmen's. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
How's everybody doing today? Isn't God good? You guys didn't say that like you believed it. I mean, I know you're all educated and sophisticated. I come from a Black church, and the Bible suggests be hot or be cold. If you're lukewarm, I'll spat you out. Translation, even God doesn't like mediocrity. If you're going to do it with both feet, or don't do it at all. Good afternoon. That kind of passion is going to be necessary for what we have coming next. You know, it's raining outside, and it's a scientific fact that you cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. It's not just good theory, it's actually scientific fact. So it's raining outside, but there's a rainbow coming. Ambassador Andrew Young, who I just talked to last night, who was on that balcony when Dr. King was assassinated, pointing at the shooter. The man who met with Dr. King 2 weeks before he was assassinated in Memphis, and Dr. King said, you know, we shouldn't be protesting to get a street light up. We need mayors, we need elected officials in office to do that. You know, we need economics. We have to have jobs and opportunity. By the way, it was a march for jobs and freedom. Jobs and freedom. And he said, Andy, we got to get at this. Just so happens that Ambassador Young went on to be the only acolyte of Dr. King to build an American city as the only international city in the South, the 10th largest economy in the country, $450 billion. That's Atlanta, Georgia. And to come here, Ambassador Young would say coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. To come here and to be in front of this beautiful lady, your president of this university, a Black woman, after your governor, a white man, just introduced the first secretary of the Treasury, who's a woman. You're not getting this. The lady in charge of racial equity and economic equity for the nation at the Treasury Department, an honorary sister. Janice is so cool, I'm gonna make her a Black woman, honorary Black woman. So it's coming, Jess. It's coming in the mail. See, she's turning pink. See, it's working. Carolina Young, Chief Economic Advisor for the first Black female vice president in the history of the United States of America. The Chief Economic Advisor for the vice president is also a woman, and she's here. Raise your hand. Your mayor's a female of Raleigh. Honored to be with you today. You're about to meet the first deputy secretary in the history of the United States of America, the biggest economy in the world, who happens to be Black, ever. That conversation will come next. I just want you to understand the moment. We get frustrated and flustered, distracted about things in the short term. We don't see the vision. This is God's world. Darkness comes from light, not the other way around. Badness has failed goodness. Rainbows only follow storms. You're sitting in a building that was created about 10 years after the Freedmen's Bank, the first institution, the first building to educate Black women in the United States of America. Yes. You're sitting in a state that was knee-deep in the the Civil War and the battle over slavery. And look at who is running this premier institution in this premier town in partnership with the governor, who sees the color not as black or white or red or blue, but green. Can I get an amen? See, that wasn't a Black amen or a Latino amen or an Asian amen or an Indian amen. It was just an amen. The Freedmen's Bank, I won't repeat what the Secretary of the Treasury eloquently already articulated, but I'm going to add to it just a little bit and contextualize it, if that's okay with you. I'm sorry, I've got low self-esteem. I'm talking to you, actually, not, it's okay? All right. And I don't want to talk too long. My mother always said, be good, be quick, and then be gone. You never want to be the old guy in the club. I'm giving you guys some good stuff. It's going right over your heads. You're in a moment in history right now. But history does not feel historic when you're sitting in it. It just feels like another day. But that does not mean the moment is not, in fact, historic. It takes 20 years to look back and see something historic. It takes 20 years to build a culture. You're in the third Reconstruction right now, from the streets to the suites. This is economic opportunity for all. The first Reconstruction, though, was a Civil War and the period that came after it. And Abraham Lincoln took this transition as a human being, and we don't have time for this whole conversation. My second great grandfather, George Young, was in Lincoln's army as a part of the U.S. Black troops in Memphis, Tennessee, fighting for freedom as a slave, former slave, after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. George Young. I have freedom fighting in my blood. In 1865, in January, Secretary of War Stanton and General Sherman went to Savannah, Georgia. And by the way, I didn't mention the senior advisor, one of the senior advisors to the President of the United States of America is also here. You call him Mayor Stephen Benjamin. Where is he at? Is he here? He's in the back of the room. Also a black man and doing an incredible work, who's a great leader who happens to be black, not a black leader. A great leader who happens to be black. So they go to meet with these 20 ministers, Madam President, in Savannah, Georgia, these former slaves. And they said, what do you want after slavery? Do they want a welfare check? You know the answer, no. Do they want a handout? You know the answer, no. We want land. We want to do for our, see how natural that is? So they said, fine, we're gonna give you 40 acres. It was 18 plots of land, really from North Carolina, South Carolina, along the coast. This was not great land, by the way. We love beachfront property today. But back then it was an agricultural age, so you're farming on the beach, which means you put your crops in, your seeds in the sand, you wake up tomorrow and your crops in Jamaica. But we didn't complain about it because black folks have been doing so much with so little for so long, we'd almost do anything with nothing. We just put our buckets down, we worked very hard, and they were so industrious. In a month's time, they said, oh my God, they're so industrious, give them a mule. Get that? 40 acres and a mule. That was January 1865. February 1865 came the mule. The next month, no Snapchat, no Twitter, no Instagram, there's no way of communicating. This is people hustling and talking and communicating hand to hand. The next month, March 3rd, Abraham Lincoln signs the Freedmen's Bank legislation, which created institutions of higher learning and hospitals and such, but it also created the Freedmen's Bank, the Freedmen's Bureau. Then they also created the Freedmen's Bank, a bank chartered, quote, to teach freed slaves about money. It's financial literacy. There were, so now think about this, land, this is deep now. January, the land. February, the mule, machinery. March, the bank. Teach you about free enterprise, capitalism, economics, ownership, opportunity, how capitalism works. We're not dumb and we're not stupid. It's what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us, but we think we know. We know how to make money, we don't know how to build wealth. No one gave us a memo. When the rules are published and the playing field is level, we kill it. Am I talking to myself? Think about professional sports. Not only just traditional sports, basketball and football. I'm talking about F1 racing and tennis. And now the brother just won a stage of the Tour de France and the bike race. I mean, wherever the rules are published and the playing field is level, we absolutely excel. Think about the arts. Think about government. Think about faith. When the rules are published and the playing field, but no one taught us about free enterprise and capitalism and economics and ownership and opportunity. We couldn't create assets because we were assets. I think I'm talking to myself. Bought, traded, insured, underwritten, finance. The wealthiest asset in the country in the 1840s was us. So here comes this bank, not only to teach you financial literacy, but to seed corn, give you access to capital and to grow it. And Lincoln thought this was so important. And in his ear, by the way, was somebody you know to be an abolitionist. I know to be a businessman. His name was Frederick Douglass, who owned $6 million worth of real estate, by the way, in Baltimore, Maryland, and rented it out to working class blacks, which gave him the financial freedom to do as he liked. The bank gets stood up. Where does Lincoln put it? Proximity to power in Washington is really important. Where did he put it? You've got the park in honor of the French who helped us with our independence in front of us. You have the building to the left where they keep visiting heads of state. You got the Treasury Department, the first federal building to the right, all about money. First federal building, which all of the federal offices came out of Treasury. You got the Department of War, now old executive office building to the left. Caddy corner to the right was the Freedmen's Bank. So Lincoln could go upstairs and look out the window, see his most important unfinished experiment for the ultimate freedom of the people who gave everything and got nothing. And he made the mistake, quote unquote, to then promise blacks the right to vote. And Booth said that's a bridge too far, it's the last speech you'll ever give. And they killed him in April 1865. Now follow me. 40 acres in January, mule in February, bank in March, assassination in April. So Frederick Douglass came in and said, we can't let this experiment end. He was the Martin Luther King Jr. of the 1800s. He comes in, loses his whole reputation, puts $10,000 of his own money into a government bank. You know he wasn't getting it back. That is true public service. Puts his own money up and tries to save it, but the bank gets gamed and manipulated. But rainbows following storms, 37, 38 locations in 17 states. One state had 3 offices, this one. One of them was in Raleigh. Can't make this up. And out of all this energy came, yes, this great university and this institution to raise and educate these women. You also have the Black Wall Street here. What's the street called? Haggard, was it Haggard? Hargett Street, 1 G, 2 G's, 1 T. And it thrived in the early 20th century, early 1910-ish. We talk about we talk Tulsa, but they don't talk about this story. And by the way, this story thrived until a freeway came in and changed the demographics and the environment. But then now understand you're bringing it back. Let me tell you how you're a role model here in Raleigh and bring this full circle for how we came to this moment. I like math because it doesn't have an opinion. You are the city who's had the most excuses to do the least progress given your history. And based on the cities I've mapped every credit score in America by zip code, every one. And I can't go to a city where I don't see 110, 120 point difference between the underserved area and the mainstream area. In other words, it's 700 credit score neighborhoods for the mainstream area and typically 550, 580, what I call the hood. You don't know what I'm talking about, okay. A check casher next to a payday loan lender, next to a rent-to-own store, next to a title lender, next to a liquor store, next to a pawn shop, find me, with a church down the street. And in that 580 credit score neighborhood, you lived, listen now, to 61 years old. And 15 minutes away, you live to 81 years old. All across the country, white and black, rich and poor, black, white, poor, white, rural, more poor white people than poor anybody else, by the way, or black and urban. 15 minutes apart, you live 20 years longer. And all the numbers are the same, except I come to Raleigh, and here's what I see. Your worst credit score is 640. It's unbelievable. Your best is well over 700, 746. So 5 points, 27608. That's 746. Southeast Raleigh, 27610. That's 646. You have a home ome rate, this is unbelievable, of 61%. I'm told this is a majority black neighborhood, 61%. The average black home ownership rate in America is 41 to 44%. This is unbelievable. What's the number one way you build wealth in America? By the way, how did the Freedmen's Bank ultimately fail? They amended the charter to allow the bank to invest in real estate, and some dude, a gentleman in New York, in Washington, D.C., gamed the bank and manipulated it, and that's actually how the bank failed. It wasn't because of black depositors or black borrowers, it's because of somebody who was selfish in Washington, D.C. It wasn't what happened in Raleigh, it's what happened in our nation's capital, which is why I love that they brought the Freedmen's Bank Forum out of Washington to the first ever stop in a city, which is Raleigh. Thank you. The numbers get better. In a 580 credit score neighborhood, am I boring you? Okay. I'd do it anyway, but I'm just curious. In a 580 credit score neighborhood, you have a credit score of 85. In a 580 credit score neighborhood, you have you have a high school graduation rates of 61% compared to 96% in a 700 credit score neighborhood. Your graduation rate in Raleigh is 85.5% of high school. This is absolutely great because education is the ultimate poverty eradication tool. When you know better, you do better. Life expectancy in Raleigh, what did I tell you now about the 580 credit score neighborhood? 61, right? Life expectancy in Raleigh, 74.3. Every 50 points of a credit score, this is deep, you live 10 years longer. Above about 580. You know what I love about this? This doesn't matter about whether somebody likes you or somebody's nice to you or they're kind to you. The computer don't care what color you are at midnight when you go and punch your data in. The computer just says yes or no. And nothing changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 120 points. Today's Friday, right? When you guys go to the club tonight, I'm sure you don't go to the club. But when you go to the club tonight after you finish work, and some of you who are single or your children are single, oh, he's handsome. Oh, she's beautiful. Next question, what's your credit score? You think I'm kidding? The color's not black or white anymore, or red or blue. This is a game. It's always been green. But before, when they created this Freedmen's Bank, they could game you. They could control you from a central office. They could play these games with you because you didn't know better, so you couldn't do better. Kathy Gaines, stand up. She didn't know I was going to call her name. This lady, who reminds me of my mother, is a bad sister. I just met her. She lives in your city. She had a vision for herself. She came to Operation Hope, started a business in 2014, had some challenges, doubled down, wouldn't give up, came back I think during the pandemic, started again, went through our programs, part of our 1 million Black Business Initiative. By the way, we created 450,000 Black businesses. The Black Chamber is here. He'd love to hear this. My man would love to hear this. 450,000 Black businesses since George Floyd's murder. She's one of them. But hold on. No. She told me about a little contract she got. No, you ain't sitting down. What's the contract amount? Yeah, you. $500,000 contract, Ron. And how many employees do you have? Employees. I don't know if you heard that. She said, basically, I'm gonna pay it forward. I'm struggling, yes. I'm hustling, yes. I've got 2-3 employees, but I'm gonna create an internship every year to pay it forward. So as we know better, we can do better because you model what you see. She is the living legacy of the Freedmen's Bank. Thank you very much. By the way, what's your credit score? No, I'm serious. What's your credit score? So I asked you another question. Stand up. What's your credit score? What's your credit score? Say it. Say it again. Say it again. You hear what she said? 765. I asked her, was she married? You're sitting in a moment in history right now. It's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be quick. It's gonna be hard as hell. And people are gonna try to stop you. Because after every Reconstruction, there's somebody trying to stop you. The first Reconstruction lasted about 10 years. Is that right, Madam President? It wasn't because we weren't doing the right things, it was we were doing too many of the right things. It was a threat to somebody. The second Reconstruction, civil rights movement, we know this. They killed the dreamer, but didn't kill the dream, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., right when he pivoted toward money. And now we're in the third Reconstruction. I hear you over there, which means wrap it up. Now we're in the third, Now we're in the third reconstruction. Now, mind you, he's over there. Look, I left out of Sun Valley, Utah yesterday, took two trains, planes, automobiles, boats to get here because I was hanging around the Billionaires Summer Camp, which is Sun Valley Conference, and there was about 500 billion in the room, a couple trillion, probably 5 trillion in revenue. But what I want you to hear when I came here is the federal government spends about $700 to $800 billion on contracting alone. The GDP of this country is $27 trillion. And that public purpose capitalism simply needs to be trained, which is what they're trying to do, on the number one asset we have in this country, which is our people. And here's the reality. There's not enough college-educated, successful white men. This is not a racial comment. This is math. There's not enough college-educated, successful white men to drive GDP for the next 20 years. It's just math. It's never happened in the history of this world. You cannot succeed today without black and brown and women. It's impossible. So yeah, I'm done. I'm wrapping it up. But let me tell you, God has a sense of humor. In 1972, women, including white women, could not get a bank account. Somebody in this room remembers what I'm talking about. Not 1872, 1972. Could not get a bank account, could not get a credit card. Hold on. You couldn't get a loan unless your husband co-signed it. Can I get an amen? And people stood against what we call inclusion back then, diversity, whatever you want to call it, but they stood up against it. No, women's places in the house and all this crazy stuff. If they had succeeded and stopped women from entering the economy, women today are 25% of all GDP, gross domestic product, in the largest economy on the planet, $7 trillion. If they had succeeded, we'd be an also-ran country today. We'd be a second-tier economy. We would not be the light on the hill. We would not be the place for freedom. You can't do this without all of us. My rich friends need my poor friends to do better, only to stay rich. So understand, this is not charity. This is not some public affairs program. You are the GDP, you are the R&D, the research and development, for the future GDP of this country. And the federal government is coming here today on the renewal of the Freedmen's Bank legacy, for which me and my friend Wale Adeyemo, 10 years ago almost, conspired to get the federal government to rename that Treasury Annex building to the Freedmen's Bank building, which is what it is to this day. And then they inspired this forum, which I'm so honored you guys continue to this day. But they're here trying to be your venture capitalists. And people are trying to stop them. And you need to stand up right now and say you're not gonna let them.
So I don't know if they're taking a break right now. Had the itinerary up in front of me. Okay, no, they're not.
What I don't understand, and I mind you, I am a guest. I'm a visitor in Raleigh, North Carolina. I don't have a right to say this, but I don't understand what just happened. The first black man to be Deputy Secretary of the United States Treasury Department for the sole superpower in the world, the biggest economy on the planet in the history of this long nation, from slavery to empowerment. And not only is he black, he's African black. And he walks in here, yes, looking like he's 12, but he walks in here, which means he's a genius. If he's in this position and he looks youthful like this, you better know he's a genius. You can't, come on now, Raleigh, let's do this one more time. Ron, you got it right. The Deputy Secretary of the United States Treasury Department, Wale Adeyemo. Wale, I said it briefly.
I don't know if I should call you preacher.
No, just call me your
or
friend.
brother. Or
I love
friend.
you, man.
I love you too.
You're
And
amazing.
Thank you for, and I think you put this well, because a decade ago when you walked into my office and Treasury and told me the history of the Freedmen's Bank and pointed out to me that the building across the street that we were using to do a bunch of national security things actually was a headquarters. Little did I know that it would lead to where we are today, which is this forum that gives us an opportunity to commemorate that history and the history you just told, but also to talk about that future in terms of what we do to help make sure that we can invest in this community. Because to your point, there's no way that the United States succeeds unless we invest in communities like this. Unless everyone succeeds, America doesn't succeed. So thank you so much for knocking on my door that day and leading to the conversation we're having today.
It's my honor. And let me tell you, so I was so proud. We got the building. Well, we tried to get the building renamed, and the lawyers tried to stop us, and Wale remove that barrier, and we go to Secretary Liu's office, and he says, why should I do this? Because he could do it administratively. I said, well, you cannot possibly tell me that the Treasury Annex building is a better name than the Freedmen's Bank building. So he changes the name. And so I go over very proudly to present my credentials at the building, walk in the building I helped to get renamed, and they stop me at the door. You can't come in here. It's a secure building. It's where they do all of the financial sanctions globally for Russia, for Iran, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do you know who's in charge of all sanctions for all bad people in the world? That's a bad brother. Wale Adeyemo, hailing from Africa, Nigeria, yes?
Yep.
Up from nothing. So proud of you.
Appreciate you.
We're here, just to make it clear for those looking at this on stream, we're not even talking about Black people today. Please hear me. This is not a divide conversation. This is an us conversation. We're talking about growing an economy. You can't do it without all of us. That's what we're saying. And all of us needs a little seed corn in order to do that. While you have been Deputy Secretary of the Treasury Department for the last 3 years, you've been a partner in the vision to build wealth in Black and underserved communities. And Janice, once again, thank you for your leadership there, formerly of JP Morgan Chase, by the way, so she's a trained banker. Tell us what tell us how we got here and what brings you to this work. I hinted a little bit on your background, but why is this important to you? This is not your first role. You were in national security roles. You were in economic advisory roles for the former president, also President Obama. Why is this important to you?
Yeah, and I think it's the reason it's important to all of you. Ultimately, this is about not statistics or numbers, but about community and the communities that we're from. And I came here at 2 with my parents, who came here for school and got an education and raised us, family of 5, often with more than 5 people living in our small 700 square foot apartment, and bought their first home, which with FHA. And in that home, we bought it in a working class community that fed into a school that was made up of more Black and brown people than white people. And I was in the first class to go to college after the end of affirmative action in California. And I went to UC Berkeley, where I was one of 6 Black males who didn't play sports in a class of 6,000. And it left me with the impression that something clearly was not working in our country, in my community, and left me with a question as to what that was. And it led me down the road of thinking about the ways that economic policy, your zip code, often defined where you would end up in life. And as you say, often zip codes related to credit scores. And that led me down the road to ending up at a place like the Treasury Department during the financial crisis and seeing how a crisis that was started on Wall Street impacted communities like the one I'm from was part of what kept me doing this work, because ultimately the people who were working hard were the ones who were most hurt by that crisis. And I wanted to make sure in coming back this time, in looking at what happened in the last administration, that as we came into this one, we invested in those communities that were most hurt by the pandemic. That's why we've been so focused on trying to use economic policy to try and ensure that Black and brown communities in this country, who have often been left out and left behind, have been invested in, because when you invest in those communities, you're investing in all of America. I say this now all the time because I think it's important to point out that 1.4 million Americans, Black Americans, white Americans, are employed by Black-owned businesses. Black-owned businesses in this country have a payroll of over $50 billion on an annual basis. Over the course of the Biden-Harris administration, we've doubled the number of Black-owned businesses in this country. That is, yeah. We've increased by 40% the number of Latino-owned businesses in this country. But the thing that I hear from each one of those businesses every day is they need two things. They need access to capital, people to invest in their dreams, but they also need access to customers.
That's right.
So today, those are the two things we're focused on. That's why we're here today, because we want to bring to communities like this what the Freedmen's Bank was meant to bring to the country, which is giving people access to opportunity.
Yeah.
Because opportunity is what people need in these communities. There is so much talent in these communities, but the thing that we often lack is opportunity. So our goal in doing this today is to bring opportunity here, but that's exactly what we want to do throughout the country, working closely with groups like yours to ensure that people understand the type of things that we can do to bring them opportunity. You invited that young woman to stand. I think the thing you whispered to me when we met her at first was about her confidence. Yeah. And I think the truth is that in these communities, there are people who have talent, and the reason that they lack confidence often is because of lack of opportunity. Well, I think the thing that we're doing is making sure that by doing things like investing in CDFIs and minority-owned depository institutions, we're helping people get access to the capital they need. The Biden-Harris administration have put $1.4 billion in Black-owned banks in this country. That's more money than has ever been put in Black-owned banks in this country.
Yes.
That $1.4 billion is going to allow them to lend up to $80 billion to small businesses. And to
contextualize this, there's only a couple of Black banks that even approach $1 billion of assets. I need you to understand these numbers actually do matter. So for him to say he's put $1 billion, they put $1 billion into Black-owned banks. Ron, how many Black-owned banks are there in America now? There's less than 100, man. The head of the National Black Bankers Association is.
She's here.
Elon, she's here. Stand up. Where are you at? She walked out. There she is right there. A sister. There we go. And so that's meaningful and important. And again, also, while I want to bring again this back local, talking about Raleigh, if we can stop talking about racial issues and these things that are dividing people and talk about raising the credit score in this entire city to 700, so that Truist Bank and Bank of America and Wells Fargo and the Black-owned banks and everybody else can say yes to access to capital. And that you create your home ownership rate goes from 64 to 74, 75% of Black-owned home ownership. Your small businesses have access to capital. They pay it back. Doesn't that reduce tensions? Doesn't that reduce stress? I mean, this is the radical movement of common sense that you're not getting credit for as an administration. The vice president has done this economic tour. It's not the Black tour. It's not the Latino tour. It's an economic opportunity tour. And the Freedmen's Bank was about lifting all of God's children up. It's just that the Black people were left behind to do something strangely called slavery. So this is not something playing preferences for somebody. It's leveling the playing field. And so what you just said was literally providing money for Black banks, well run, so they can then lend it back out and be repaid, is leveling.
And I think the thing that you're doing every day, which I think is also important, is providing people with information, because information is powerful. And I heard you say this, and I think it's true. When the rules are clear, we can succeed.
Yes.
But when you don't know what the rules are, when you haven't been informed about the ways that capitalism, when you don't understand how to keep your balance sheet, how
What
to
is a balance
make sure
sheet?
you keep what is a balance sheet, how to make sure that you maintain your credit score. When you don't have that type of information, even if you are the best baker, the best computer scientist, you don't know how to build a business. And I think part of the goal is not only providing money, but also providing technical assistance.
Yes.
And you're doing that every day. And partners like Truist Bank are working with you to do that. And from our standpoint, we want to do this in communities all over the country, because ultimately the challenges you often will see in urban communities in this country, you'll also see in rural communities in this country.
Yes.
They're often left out and
Yes.
left
Poor
behind as
whites.
well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Poor whites, poor black people,
That's why they're
Latino people
frustrated.
live there as well. Exactly. And I think the goal for our administration, as you mentioned, I spend the majority of my time working on national security issues. Everything from sanctions to thinking about how we make investments to protect our country, but also thinking about how we make America's economy the most competitive in the world. And the secret power the United States has is we have a diverse country that has people of all stripes who can contribute to the economy, but because of legacies of racism and the fact that we've left out communities and left them behind, they haven't had the opportunities they need. That is unrealized potential. Investing in that unrealized potential is the way that we grow our economy faster and better than any economy in the world. And that's what we've done over the last 3 years. That's why America's economy is doing better than any economy in the world, but we've got to do more. And that's why we're here today, to talk about what else we can do to make sure that we're investing in capital, in customers, but also in providing information, which I think is a critical last leg in making sure that people, when they understand the rules, I think that our communities will succeed beyond anyone's wildest dreams.
So you mentioned Truist. Bill Rogers is their CEO, and he told me that volunteered 150 plus years ago, they used to engage in financing plantations which had slaves on it. And he apologized for that. Today, Truist has 2,000 bank branches, Wale. 800 of those bank branches are Hope Inside branches. When you do 800 locations, that's not charity. That's business. They really believe that if they can get the credit score up, the debt down, and the savings up, they can get out of the no business back into the yes business. So we think that this is our part to continue the Freedmen's Bank legacy, but we can't do this without the federal government. This was the nation saying this was a priority. You didn't have to pick this up. In fact, the Secretary Yellen didn't have to pick it up. President Biden didn't have to pick it up. The Vice President didn't have to pick it up. You didn't have to continue it. Why did you come from Washington, D.C. to Raleigh? Why is a Treasury Department, which is not typically viewed as an emotional, sort of warm, gooey, loving place?
Say more, yeah.
Why did the Treasury Department find it's important to uphold the vision of the Freedmen's Bank and to continue it to this day? Why is that important?
So let's start from the standpoint that it's the right thing to do. Ultimately, living up to our nation's highest ideals is the most important thing we can do. And the president reminds us of that every day. But the reason that it is critical for us to do from an economic standpoint is that my job, the secretary's job, is to make sure that we grow the U.S. economy as strong, as resilient as possible. And we cannot do that without you, without Raleigh, without Black Americans, without Latino Americans, without all Americans. Every American has to contribute to our growth. And what Secretary Yellen says, and those of you who know her, she is a historic figure. She is a trained economist. And her view is that the best way for us to grow our economy today is by unlocking the unrealized potential of Americans who have been left out and left behind for so long. That's why the Vice President and Secretary Yellen have been so strongly in favor of us continuing to live within the legacy that we've created here with the Freedmen's Bank Forum, because we know it's an opportunity for us to both commemorate what happened in the past, but make a commitment to a future that's better and different, where we're investing in these communities, providing information, access to capital, and also access to customers. Because fundamentally, if the government can do this, can help create these paths for all Americans, as you put it, through things like the Economic Opportunity Coalition,
Yes.
when we create opportunity for all Americans, we know that Americans in this room, Americans in this country, Americans in Raleigh can succeed. That's why we're focused on this.
One thing that you guys did, the Vice President led it recently, was medical debt. And this affects everybody. Doesn't matter what color you are. Doesn't matter what socioeconomic status you are. Up until recently, if you had medical debt on your record, it would keep you from become a homeowner or to start a small business. Now, medical does not count against your credit score because of the leadership of the vice president and Treasury and the president and the administration. And Operation Hope is helping with that along with other organizations. That's a game-changing situation because now people can have enough credit score to access capital. What other things specifically is the Treasury Department doing to ensure communities are integrated, particularly those who are excluded, like African Americans, in building a new middle class, which will allow us to continue to be the biggest economy on the planet?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you mentioned medical debt, but I think student loan debt is also critical
Yes.
to people in our community as well. And oftentimes people don't realize that this is an inhibitor to people being able to succeed, because for so many Americans, when you come from a family where you don't have generational wealth, when you go out, you don't have someone who's going to give you a family loan to start that first small business or to buy your first house. So if you don't have a credit score that gives you access to the credit early on, it's that you're set back right away. That's why looking at ways to deal with debt matter. But in addition to doing that, I think one of the things that we've tried to do at the Treasury Department is make sure that we partner with the private sector to make sure that they're in a position to meet the commitments that they've made. A number of these private sector firms made a number of commitments after the murder of George Floyd. And one of the things that we found is that for so many of them, they just didn't meet those commitments. So today, under the Vice President's leadership, we've created the Economic Opportunity Coalition, which is a group that is set out to get big businesses throughout the country, from the Googles of the world to the Citibanks of the world to the IBMs of the world, to make commitments around two things: making sure that community development financial institutions and minority-owned depository institutions have access to the money they need to lend capital into communities that have been left out and left behind. And the second one is making sure that those big businesses make real, verifiable commitments to including small businesses and medium-sized businesses from those same communities in their supply chains. That's how you create the access to capital and the access to customers that we need. The goal is to make sure we build out that coalition and we hold those groups accountable. We've got to hold ourselves accountable too. That's why I'm proud that at the Treasury Department, we've increased by 60% the amount of money that we are spending in minority-owned firms. So we are now your customers, and the investments we're making in your firms as well in order to help grow the economy. And I mentioned the $1.4 billion we put into black banks, but we've put $12 billion overall into community development financial institutions. CDFIs. These institutions, that deserves a round of applause, because
real money.
That wouldn't have happened without the vice president. The vice president has been an advocate for this long before she was vice president. And that $12 billion is going to unlock the ability for businesses in these communities to get access to not just lending, because I think getting capital is important, but getting the technical assistance you need to learn how to build your business. It's going to put them in a position to make sure that you have a relationship with an institution that can grow alongside you.
I know this is being streamed. I can't say this enough. I don't want anybody watching this to think they're taking something from me. We're talking about expanding the table and adding a seat. Expanding the table, growing the economy, and adding a seat. You can't just grow the economy based on what's there already. So this is a green conversation, not a black, a brown, a red, or a blue conversation. And small business, as most people know, drives the economy. I was looking at my notes about the CHIPS Act. That doesn't happen without the private sector. The infrastructure bill doesn't happen without the private sector. Big mainstream companies are going to get most of this action. They should be partnering and subcontracting with you, by the way. So everybody's going to win when the Inflation Reduction Act. These are big, audacious things, but this is not some wild liberal fantasy. This is the biggest economy and the only growing economy, right, by the way, in the world. Mr. Deputy Secretary, I keep calling you Wale because you're my boy, but I did this TV show and on a network, and this guy got on live and was complaining about the president. Complaining. I let him finish. I said, sir, I know who you are. I love math. I know your net worth. You're worth $4 billion. But in 2019, you're worth $2 billion. Your net worth has doubled under this president. What are you whining about? and all of a sudden his connection broke, and he. So look, this is a rational movement of common sense.
Yep.
And it's about growing the economy trying to get everybody into it, correct?
Yeah.
And the Freedmen's Bank is now part of that
It is. And I
larger
think
vision.
there's two different ways to do it. And I think everyone knows about the interstate highway system. Huge transformative thing that happened in America. But the thing, and you mentioned this, I think, during your remarks, that when we built the interstate highway system, instead of building it in an inclusive way, we built it in an exclusive way,
Yes.
in which some communities were built over and built around. And I lived I lived on the south side of Chicago, and when I talked to some of the young people there who were looking out at downtown, many of them had never been there because there was no public transportation and the freeways weren't built into it. So the thing the president and vice president have done when it comes to the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, to the Infrastructure Act, they've built into it policies that are helping to advance being inclusive. I was just in Idaho, and Idaho is a strange place to start this story, I know, because on my plane to Idaho, I was the only person who looked like me on the whole
Yes.
plane. But ultimately, the challenges rural Idaho has are not dissimilar from the challenges that we have in Rialto, California, where I went to high school, or in.
By the way, he's Asian. He's always hanging around the money. Yeah, the only reason he went to Idaho.
Yeah, and there's money there. There's this company called Micron, who's getting money from the federal government through the CHIPS and Science Act.
That's right.
And when I went there, what Micron did was they made a commitment to putting money in CDFIs. Why did Micron do this? Not only because of the relationship with the federal government, because Micron knows that in order for them to succeed, they need a successful small business ecosystem.
That's right.
Those small businesses are run by people who look like us all over the country. 18 million small businesses have started since the beginning of the Biden-Harris administration. That is more than in any 3-year period in history. We've doubled the number of Black-owned small businesses over the last 3 years, increased the number of Hispanic-owned small businesses by 40%. Our goal now is to make sure that those small businesses become medium-sized businesses, become large businesses, not because that's good for Black and Latino Americans, but because that's good for every American.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, one of the reasons I love you guys is your PhD and PhD too. You walk the talk. I want you to talk about a couple of specific things that you think have been done best at sort of driving down at the level of where people can feel it and that people may not be obvious. I also want to let all of you know here that after this is over, there's going to be I don't know, it's not a, there's some booths and an open house and expo that will allow you to actually engage with federal agencies and begin to build relationship capital. Hello? Because if you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th. What's wrong with you people? I'm giving you some good stuff. I want you to build relationship capital so that you can be part of the story. And the next Kathy that gets cited, who's doing $500,000 contract, are we on the same page? Economic growth for everybody. So think about for a second, Mrs. Deputy Secretary, I'm gonna give you a minute to think about what couple, 2, 3, 4, 5 things you're most proud of. While I do that, I want as an assignment for you. I want you to think, the federal government just gave you some money right now. Right now in your family, somebody makes $60,000 or less, yes or no? Okay. That person you're thinking about right now, maybe they make $35,000, $38,000, $40,000. They got children. Maybe they have 3 children. Get somebody in your mind, okay? I want you to go home, say you went to a great conference today for the Freedmen's Bank Forum. You say Susie, Mary, what her name is, 3 children, makes $45,000 a year. You ever heard of EITC? Earned Income Tax Credit, which by the way is bipartisan. By the way, this is also reports to Wale Adiyamo, the IRS. Have you ever heard of EITC? When they say no, what's that? You say congratulations. Because if you work in America, it's not a giveaway program. This is bipartisan, by the way, Republican and Democrat. You work in America. You work your tail off. This is a bonus for working. And if they've never heard of it, it's retroactive for 3 years. Let me give you some context. That example I just gave, $45,000, 3 kids, about $5,000 cash. If you have never filed, retroactive 3 years, help me with the math, that's $15,000. That's more money than that family has ever seen free cash flow in their life, enough money to put a down payment on a house in Raleigh, pay off a credit card, pay off a car loan, send somebody to this college, university. Can I get an amen? See, she said amen. I want you to leave here today and endow somebody with the gift of EITC. This is something, again, it's right in front of us. We're not doing it, but this is how you build this country.
I appreciate you. And I think I put on my list some of the things that we're doing at the IRS, because one of the things that to me was the most important things we did during the pandemic was the advanced child tax credit, which was a check middle class and working class Americans, no matter your color, got in the mail or got directly into your checking account per child, $350 a month. That reduced Black young poverty by 50%.
Wow.
We've got to bring that back. Yeah. It is one of the things I am proudest of, and one of the things I know the president and the vice president want to make sure continue. And we're going to face choices, and it's a place where we want to continue to do that work. The second one is that we've put hundreds of millions of dollars into financial institutions, CDFIs and Black-owned financial institutions right here in North Carolina. Hundreds of millions of dollars. You're going to meet some of those institutions when you go back to the fair today who have received this money. But from my standpoint, putting that money into those institutions is going to be the gift that keeps on giving, because as you said, they're going to lend that money to your small businesses. You're going to return that money to them, and they're going to lend it to more small businesses. That's how we create wealth in our communities. That to me is a second and very important thing. The third one is the coalition that we're building, because ultimately the only way we're going to do this is doing it together. When Reverend King was assassinated, he was in the midst of building a coalition that brought together this fight against poverty with the fight for civil rights. Yes. And I think today, everything from what we're doing here in this room to what we're doing at the Economic Opportunity Coalition to what we're doing throughout the country to help bring together a coalition that recognizes that giving people access to capital, access to customers, and access to information is critical to not only building the economy for Black or Latino America, but it's critical to building the economy for every American. And the idea that the Treasury Department is at the center of that, I think, is the third thing that I am very proud of. And it's something I know the Vice President, the President, and Secretary Yellen are focused on. It's something that I can't thank all of you in this room for what you're doing to be a part of that, because I know that we can't do this work alone. We have to do it in coalition with people like you, and I can't thank you enough for your leadership as part of this coalition. But the way that this country continues to make progress, we continue to bend that arc, is that we recognize that there are going to be those who push back against moments like this one. And we're seeing that in the courts. We're seeing that in state legislatures. But the key thing we have to do is continue to speak to the fact that this is about opportunity for everyone by investing in those people who have been left out and left behind for too long. So I can't thank you enough for being here. I can't thank you enough for being a part of the future. Because the future, from my standpoint, is defined by the people who are willing to do the work. And you said it, a PhD in PhD. And I think I know so many people in this room, and you're doing the work every day in your organizations, in your communities, and that work's not getting easier. But what I want to tell you is that because the president and vice president's leadership, we have the tools now to do the work, and now we just got to go out and do it. So thank you, John, for having me.
Listen, everybody, I was told that I only have a few minutes, and I was also told the audience couldn't ask questions. So I'm going to offer you one opportunity for one question. I was told I couldn't ask questions. But there's a historic moment here, and we only have a couple minutes. But no, seriously, this is a historic figure. This is a historic figure. Somebody here asked a really smart question that will go down as part of the archives for this very important first ever gathering of the Freedmen's Bank Forum in Raleigh, North Carolina. What do you have to say to the Deputy Secretary of the United States of America? One question quickly. Yes, stand up. Wait a minute, you work for Operation Hope? Oh, okay, cool. All right, all right.
Yeah, and I think that like so many, Black women are so critical to the community. They're
Yeah.
the bedrock of the family, of our families, but they've also been the bedrocks of the economic recovery that we've gone through. And we often forget because it's easier sometimes to forget hard things than to remember them. But we have to remember that 4 years ago, we wouldn't have been sitting here. 4 years ago, we would have been in our homes, worried about the fact that a pandemic that had hit the entire world was going to kill us. Black unemployment was nearly at 10%. We were losing family members. The fact that today we are the strongest economy in the world, that we have unemployment that has hit record lows of points for Black America was not a foregone conclusion. That was only because of two things. One, the leadership of the president and the vice president, but two, the grit and determination of the American people. And no one did more in terms of a group than Black women, who have returned to the workforce at numbers even that exceed the numbers before the pandemic. They've helped contribute to both growing the economy, but because one of the constraints we had in the economy was inflation, to reducing inflation. They are helping to drive economic growth throughout the country. And the thing that we're doing is trying to find ways to make sure that we are putting you in a better position to do that by thinking about ways that we can offer less expensive childcare and elder care so that people have the ability to not have to choose between taking care of their children and going to work. By making sure that we invest in reducing the cost of things for you, from the cost of filling your tank, which has gone down by $1.50 since the peak in 2022 because of the president and vice president's leadership, to helping you get into your first home. Because as you said earlier, the best way to build wealth is to buy a home. So the president and the vice president, again, committed to not only building 2 million more houses in this country, but offering grants and stipends to first-time home buyers so that it's easier for you to start building that wealth that you can pass on to the next generation. But frankly, we have been blessed for so long by and continue to be blessed by the ways in which Black women are showing up in this economy. And our goal needs to be to continue to empower them so that they can continue to do what they've always done, which is more than we deserve.
We started the conversation talking about we're in a hall commissioned to teach Black women first place in history. We end with this question, which was unscripted and unprepared, about Black women. Coming out of the biggest pandemic in the history of the modern world, 125 years, for which nobody gives the president and the administration any credit for, it appears. We came out of that. We're the biggest economy now in the world. The number one group since 2004, starting businesses in America, of everybody now, Black women. Will you please join me here as we say, as we salute Black women, as we salute the Deputy Secretary of the United States of America. Can you please give them both a round of applause?
Tough act to follow. That was a really incredible conversation. I want to thank you again, John, and the Deputy Secretary for a really incredible conversation. But we have more to come. There is still some really great conversation to be had. So I want to welcome up a good friend, a colleague, Carolina Young, Dr. Carolina Young, who is Vice President's Chief Economic Advisor, bringing her greetings to this historic event. Carolina.
Thank you so much, Councillor Baldwin, my friend Janice, and I want to thank the entire Treasury team, especially Deputy Secretary Adeyemo, for putting together this year's Freedmen's Bank Forum. It is my honor and privilege to be here on behalf of the Office of the Vice President here at Shaw University. Thank you so much, President Dillard, for hosting us. But first, I really want to thank the partners and the friends in the room who have been helping to implement the Biden-Harris administration's historic investments on the ground here in North Carolina and around the country. Earlier, you heard from Governor Cooper, you heard from Mayor Baldwin, you heard from John Hope Bryant on Operation Hope. You couldn't have missed him. And I also see Rodney Sampson, who's here from the North Carolina Rural Center. Patrick Woody, I believe, is also here. Please reach, there you go. Ron Busby from the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce, and Chris Weaver from the Economic Opportunity Coalition. I just want to thank you all and recognize that you all noticed that the Biden-Harris administration was doing something different. We were trying to be intentional about our investments, and you immediately turned around and took those historic cross-cutting investments and turned them into tangible deliverables for North Carolinians here and across the country. And it was only possible because President Biden and Vice President Harris understood that if you invest in workers and families and small businesses, the economy grows stronger and more resilient. Deputy Secretary Adeyemo spoke about that, but it is absolutely what we are finding coming out of this pandemic. Thanks to historic investments like the American Rescue Plan and additional investments in infrastructure, chips and science, clean energy production, and more, the American economy has the strongest recovery of all advanced nations around the world. You all know that the pandemic was not just an American situation. It happened all over the world, and we have come out of it the strongest economy in the world. And, you know, I think it was only possible because the president and the vice president also understood that it's not enough just to get funding out the door. Investments needed to be intentional to reach traditionally underserved communities. And this intentionality, as you've also heard said before, is good for everyone. It grows our national economy, it boosts American productivity, which then creates more returns for wealth and intergenerational wealth for everyone. So in fact, that's really what the Vice President's nationwide economic opportunity tour has been all about. She has been going around the country to make sure that communities all over the nation, especially those too often left behind, know about and take advantage of the resources this administration is making available. Expanding access to capital is central to that work, and especially by investing in CDFIs and MDIs, the importance of which something the Vice President has been focused on since she was a senator. Since she was a senator, you heard from Deputy Secretary Adeyemo, she was a leading co-sponsor of the legislation that got that $12 billion out the door for CDFIs and MDIs and around the nation. And she has continued that work by her collaboration with the Economic Opportunity Coalition. So we need not look any further than North Carolina to understand the impact of that work. North Carolina has received historic investments from these programs, including over $700 million for CDFIs and MDIs right here, including M&F Bank. I know M&F Bank is here, and there you go, and Self-Help Credit Union, which is also here. One example is also the administration's State Small Business Credit Initiative, which is a program that was created out of the American Rescue Plan. It was designed to spur and unlock additional capital for small businesses in underserved communities. Over $200 million of that funding has gone to North Carolina. And in addition, there is a pot of funding from SSBCI that has been made available to venture capital funds. It is the largest direct federal investment in private equity participation in early stage startups in the history of the United States. And when the Vice President was here, actually Governor Cooper spoke about this. She was here in Durham earlier this year, and I think Mayor Williams was also here a little while ago. She announced that $32 million in federal funds from this program had then spurred $60 million additional dollars in private capital from diverse VC fund managers to go directly to North Carolina entrepreneurs. I know Dr. Keith Daniel, you are somewhere in the room from Resilient Ventures. Yes, over there, thank you. He is a representative from one of the 10 VC funds that the Vice President announced earlier in Durham this year. And fast forward 3 months later, when she was in Charlotte for her nationwide economic opportunity tour. She was introduced by Desmond Wiggins, who is a local North Carolina entrepreneur whose company, Battery Exchange, received an additional form of capital from one of these VC funds, the HBCU Founders Fund. So really, it's connecting the dots here. And I think what's important to note is that that's what we're trying to do. It's not an exception. It's by design. More than what we learned actually this week, and I believe it's now public information, over 43% of SSBCI funding, and reminder, this was only made possible through President Biden and Vice President Harris's historic leadership through American Rescue Plan. Over 43% of that funding has now gone to small businesses from underserved communities. Over 14% of that funding has gone to Black-owned entrepreneurs and small business owners around that country. Compare that, yes. Compare that to the less than 2% of traditional VC funds that go to Black-owned entrepreneurs around the country. So the bottom line here is that President Biden and Vice President Harris are being intentional, and they are keeping their promises to the American people and to North Carolinians. And their visionary approach is producing results. So, and with that, it is now my honor to introduce Congresswoman Fushi, who needs no introduction here in Raleigh. Congresswoman Fushi has been a local leader and public servant her entire career. Is that right? She was the first African-American woman to chair the Orange County Board of Commissioners. And before coming to Congress, she served in the North Carolina State House and North Carolina State Senate. She was born and raised in Orange County and is a proud UNC graduate. She was in Durham with the vice president earlier this year when she announced the SSBCI equity capital funding for North Carolina, and has been a tremendous fighter for North Carolina. Thank you for your leadership and your partnership, Congresswoman Fushi.
Thank you, Dr. Young, and good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed a privilege to be here with you and Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, Adeyemo, Mayor Williams, Mayor Baldwin, I saw earlier, and all of the local and community leaders who have joined us here today for the Freedmen's Bank Summer Symposium. First, I'd like to thank Shaw University and President Dr. Paulette Dillard for hosting this year's Summer Symposium. Shaw University plays an important role in our history as one of the first HBCUs in the South, and I'm glad that today's discussions on local entrepreneurship and Black businesses are taking place right here. I would also like to thank the Department of the Treasury and the Biden-Harris administration for bringing this year's Freedmen Bank Forum to North Carolina and continuing to prioritize our state, our local economy, and our small businesses. In February, as you heard, I did indeed join Vice President Harris in Durham to highlight the American Rescue Plan State Small Business Credit Initiative, a historic investment which will bolster North Carolina's small businesses and empower them to access the capital needed to invest in job-creating opportunities. We all know that small businesses are the engines of our economy and the path to economic prosperity for countless Americans in underserved communities. And in North Carolina especially, we know that our small businesses are big business. This administration has already made historic investments in community development financial institutions and minority depository institutions with over $672 million going to CDFIs and MDIs in Durham alone. This includes partnerships, as you heard earlier, with M&F Bank and Self-Help Credit Union and others who have received over $100 million through these programs. I'm proud that we have an administration with such a great vision and track record of delivering for small businesses, and I applaud their continued efforts to support and engage minority-owned businesses and underserved communities. In 2015, The Department of the Treasury launched this annual conference to continue the Freedmen Savings and Trust Company's mission of celebrating local small businesses and promoting economic equity initiatives. The Freedmen's Bank was established to provide newly emancipated Americans with the tools to build financial security and generate family wealth. Although the bank ceased operations in the late 1800s, the bank's legacy of financial inclusion for all Americans, including those in underserved communities, has been longstanding. Today, as you've heard earlier and you've already witnessed, you will all have the opportunity to participate in a panel discussion on how we can further promote the Freedmen's Bank mission, revitalize concepts like Black Wall Street, strengthen partnerships between Black-owned businesses, Black-owned banks, and HBCUs, and how we can further foster sustainable economic empowerment and growth in our communities. I am grateful for the continued investment in our federal government to support entrepreneurship in unserved communities, but we must continue to work together to ensure that these resources truly translate into wealth building opportunities and expanded economic prosperity for all. And by engaging in these conversations at both the national and the local levels of our government, we are taking important steps toward ensuring true equity for North Carolina's small and minority-owned businesses. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing positive changes that will come from this year's symposium. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Now we're going to hear from some of our local partners here on the ground, the ones that are doing the work that we've been talking about so much. Our goal is to make sure that you all, that we get to highlight the ecosystem, the really incredible ecosystem that is producing these outsized results that John Hope Bryant mentioned. And here to help us kick off that panel, let me invite up Amir Kenshin.
Thank you, Janice. Let me just say, first of all, I can't be thankful enough to the Biden-Harris administration for all the billions and billions of dollars they poured into the state. So just a huge thanks to them. When we first started the program, I think Jordan may still be here, we got a call with the governor's office. And I said to the governor's office team, I said, well, we're going to make sure that one of our priorities will be getting money to all the Black and brown. And they said, someone stopped me, interrupted, said, let me just stop you right now. Our top priority will be getting money to Black and brown communities, not one of them, but the top priority. So they set the tone from the very beginning. They shook me. I was shook from the very beginning. But I think the hit, like the Congresswoman said, we got to be very intentional about what we're doing, and we can't play games. So what you've heard a lot of talk so far, but I can assure you that the talk is translates into real action, and there's real dollars on the ground being happening to people who need the capital. So we can be joined by our panelists for our discussion now. One more story. We received $202 million to run the program, SSBCI, I thought. But I learned a little later on that we don't get the whole thing unless we hit our SETI goals. So, and accountability, right? And we are hitting numbers in terms of minority borrowers, women, owned businesses, Black borrowers. We don't get that money. So it's real pressure on us to do this, and we think that's the right thing. So we're very serious, we're very committed, and we want to make sure that we get the capital out as best we can. I think we've got on our panel, I'm going to start with my, and these are all good friends of mine, so I'm going to give them a hard time as we go. Roberta, I've never seen this kind of capital. I've been around a long time, put into our state. You've been around a lot longer than I have. So that's why, am I right, though, this much money has been put into the state. But how do we take those dollars and translate it to real action? So I'm gonna start with first of all, we have all these, they all are CDFIs, and we have a credit union and a bank, which is a great panel. Let's start with M&F Bank. And I want you to tell us who you are and what your bank does and how long you guys been doing it.
Thank you, Amir. And hello, everyone. My name is Travis Rouse, and I'm the Senior Vice President, Chief Sales and Lending Officer for M&F Bank. We are a Black-owned bank headquartered in Durham, North Carolina. We've been providing access to capital to individuals and businesses for 117 years, and we look to continue to do that for 117 more. It's good to be with you today.
Okay, very good. So they've been around for a long time, not new at all to this work. Let's move to Crystal, if you don't mind.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Crystal German. I serve as an EVP for Self-Help. We are a collection, a family of credit unions and CDFIs. We are a minority depository institution. We are located steps away from the historic Mechanics and Farmers, now M&F Bank. Also, where's the home of the Institute of Minority Economic Development, where Roberta sits. So as our mayor said, we are a group and a family that have been doing this for a while. I'm happy to be in the land of the Bears as a Rattler. So really proud of this work being done on this historic campus. We are the babies of the group compared to M&F. We have been around for 42 years. We have 190,000 members. We are located in 9 states, in the Southeast, the Midwest, and in California and the state of Washington.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. Roberta, if you don't mind.
Good afternoon, everyone. Very, very happy to be here. I am with Institute Capital, which is the lending affiliate of the National Institute of Minority and Economic Development, located on Black Wall Street in downtown Durham. Shout out to my mayor, who I saw here earlier. I hope he's still here. And I'm just going to take this point of privilege to say I am a Shaw U Bear, and so is my mom. So let's level set that. But just very, very happy to be here. We have been around. The Institute has been around for nearly 40 years. Institute Capital for close to 30 years. We do lending across 5 states to small businesses and affordable housing developers, which are both 2 very vital factors in this economy. So we'll talk more.
Okay, last but not least, so we provide capital, but the most important thing is folks who receive the capital run their businesses. So we have one person here who's going to represent small businesses, if you don't mind.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Harriet Stevenson, and I want to say thank you for putting this symposium together. It has been very informative, and I am grateful to say that we are probably one of the recipients of some of that funding that the president and vice president has talked about. I am one of the CEOs and the director of business services for Carolina Legacy Volleyball Club. And I know you may say, wow, volleyball, is that really a thing? But watching these young ladies grow and mature through sports is more than you can ever imagine, to see how they develop and grow into functional young people that will soon be sitting in these seats and be the recipients of the same. So thank you for having me on today.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we'll start our discussion now with Travis. I believe $1.4 billion that the Treasury has put into Black-owned banks. You guys were recipient of a very large amount of money. How are you using those dollars to really help Black businesses thrive and succeed?
Thank you for that question. So M&F Bank, Mechanics and Farmers Bank, received $80 million from the Emergency Capital Investment Program. And I'll tell you, that money has been transformational for our company. It has done a number of things for our company, to include allowing us to hire new people, make our buildings look better, upgrade technology. But to your question, Amir, specifically around leveraging lending, we've been able to increase the amount of lending we can do to one borrower. Before we got the money, we could only do roughly $3.5 million to one borrower. Having that capital in the bank increased our legal lending limit to nearly $10 million. So we're able to help Black business owners to do larger projects and provide more lending in the markets that we serve. The other thing that we were able to do is we are a preferred lender with SBA. And so we were able to stand up a dedicated SBA program. We have a manager, we have one lender in that program. And we plan on leveraging that to do a whole lot more in the SBA space to help Black and brown businesses, business owners in Raleigh and the other markets that we serve.
Outstanding. Wow. So from a bank perspective to a CDFI, which is a non-regulated institution. Roberta, tell us about, I know you all are one of our strongest partners with SSBCI and always have been. How are you all using the federal dollars now to leverage more programs and more products for minority borrowers?
So the SSBCI and the Corner Square programs are amazing. I don't know, it is a tremendous and a pretty efficient source of capital that we can reuse. It's a participation program that enables us to sell a portion of our loans to the program, and we can reuse that to lend to borrowers. That is a great way and a really efficient way to leverage. Now, CDFIs, we are the leverage kings and queens. I mean, that is how we function. We have lenders, various lenders that provide capital to us. We in turn go out to other funders and say, this is what Bank ABC has done. What can you do? This is our goal. How can you help? So it is a source of leveraging. That is the name of the game, really. And it's interesting because CDFIs, there's just like banks, you have big and small CDFIs. It is a bit of a struggle when you're a smaller CDFI because you're kind of in a proving ground still, no matter your longevity. I just said we've been here for nearly 30 years, so that is proof enough. However, it is still a bit of a struggle. So we are lending, we understand our borrowers because we're lending money that we ourselves had to borrow. So it is, so leverage has to be successful in order for us to achieve our goals.
Wow, thank you so much. So speaking from a smaller CDFI to a larger one, I believe self-help, Crystal, I think you guys may have received several hundred million in ESIP, maybe 400 million if I'm not mistaken, and also some billions in terms of clean energy and greenhouse gas reduction. How are you all using those? That's a lot of money. How do you all plan to use those dollars to really help spur Black businesses in our state?
So first of all, we had to start thinking about things with a B instead of an M. So we had to start thinking about billion versus million. And that alone is transformative. So what this money allows us to do is it provides us with liquidity and low cost liquidity that allows us to pass that on to our borrowers. So not only do Black borrowers have a problem accessing capital, they often pay more for the capital that they access. So folks who don't have, listen to what I'm saying, folks who don't have are then paying more for what they can get. And so what this kind of, these federal funds allow us to do is allow us to provide the access, but do it in a way that actually creates an opportunity for them to invest in their businesses and to build wealth. So specifically what we've been able to do with the ESIP money, we did get $493 million between our two. So that is $500 million. And we have been able to deploy that across our entire footprint. So in Raleigh alone, we were able to help a business buy a building to expand her child care facility and get a $800,000 loan. I won't say we wouldn't have been able to do that without the money, but it was a lot easier when we know we had that type of capital that comes in at 0% and then it goes to 2%. For the greenhouse money, which is not a Department of Treasury, but an EPA program, we are partnered with Climate United, so two other nonprofits, and we have received $6.97 billion. And what we hope to do is we hope to make sure that the communities that are most impacted by greenhouse gas, by environmental racism, by pollution, will benefit from the clean energy transition. They will not be left out as long as we're part of the solution.
Wow, so inspiring. Thank you so much. It's all great. Does that translate down to businesses though? So I'm gonna turn to Harriet, and you've gone through the process of getting your own business. Talk us through your journey and how you were able to access capital to grow that business.
The journey is not easy. I will say that. But I will also say that no doesn't mean no. There's patience, perseverance. We started our business in an industrial area in a warehouse behind a cement company with 2 volleyball courts, no bathrooms, no air conditioning. But every day that those doors were open, we were there maybe 2 hours before an event would start to ensure that the porta potty was clean, to ensure that the facility was clean, to ensure that it was a safe space for these young people to come and enter. And on our journey, it was during the time when we weren't sure what the world was going to look like. And many banks and different investors were in awe that we were pushing to get this facility built and done. And the no was just another opportunity for a new opportunity to see what was out there. And as my husband and I brainstormed, we had done some other interactions with M&F Bank. And I love about M&F Bank is that they didn't say no, but they wanted to know more about who we were. So I say all of that to say is to be organized, come with a plan. It says write the vision and make it plain. Write your vision, make it plain, have a plan, and have backup to what you are trying to do and invest in. And so when you sit in front of these different businesses, they're able to see that you are 100% invested in what it is that you're trying to build, what it is that you're exactly trying to do. And although the road wasn't necessarily an easy road, it was a worthwhile road. So whatever it is that you're looking to do, whatever it is that you're looking to start, I would say give it 100%, but always know that when one door closes, another door may open. Never, ever, ever give up on what it is that you're looking to pursue.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Yeah. Congratulations. So M&F was responsible for that. So thank you to M&F also, and to Treasury, who made it all possible. So Travis, tell me some unique products you guys have, products that really are designed to help Black businesses.
Well, you know, it's a great question. We don't have a whole lot of unique. We have the type of products that regular banks have. You know, I think the X factor in really being successful in helping Black business owners is the people that we have working for us, and the leverage and the empowerment that we can give them. I'm gonna put her on the spot and ask Sabrina Trawick to stand up and just wave her hand. Sabrina is our commercial banker here in Raleigh, but she is a great resource. She's our Triangle team lead also. And she's actually the banker that worked with Harriet and Carolina Legacy to make that happen. So hats off to Sabrina. And may I say, also, Sabrina is the banker for Shaw University, who's been a customer of M&F Bank for over 100 years. And so it really is about the unique people, those assets, those things that we have within our company that really help us leverage the capital that we brought in to the bank.
Wow, outstanding. Great to know. So Roberta, back to you. We've done dozens of loans together, so I know you have some good examples.
Absolutely.
Give us some examples that you've done and really help Black businesses go in business and stay in business.
For sure. So there's a client, which I know they're not in the room, so I won't, just for confidentiality, I won't mention their names. However, it is an affordable housing developer that is based in Southeast Raleigh, very successful individual. We have done several loans for him to do different projects, not only in Raleigh, but also in Durham. In addition to that, we also funded a project that he has created in Southeast Raleigh, a business incubator for small businesses. So this is really one of our great success stories, just by what I said. So those of you who know him probably know who I'm talking about. I'm surprised he's not here. He's very successful. Just moving over to Durham, we've funded a business, a restaurant actually. African-American woman owns this restaurant. We funded her third restaurant, very successful, great food. If I say too much, you'll know who it is, so I'm keeping it confidential. But incredibly successful, vibrant woman that we are very proud of. Most of our loans, when I say, I know most is not a number, so I'll give you a number. About 90% of our loans go to people of color and or women-owned businesses. That is not something that we have to think about. It is just something that happens naturally. And what you said, Travis, it is because of relationships. They know who we are. Our president, CEO, I should have mentioned him, Kevin, sitting right there, Kevin Price sitting right there on the second row. Kevin and I have a vast network of people, and our team, my entire team is made up of what I say recovered bankers, no shade on anybody, and CDFI experts, I should say. So those are a couple of examples. I could go on, and I will add, since she has been put on the spot all morning, I'm going to continue. She's already laughing because she knows I'm going to call her out. Ms. Gaines, when I first came to the Institute, I ran one of our women's business centers, which is a SBA-supported organization. I don't know if Mike Areola is in here still with the SBA, but he is like my favorite SBA person. But we have 4 women's business centers. Ms. Gaines, when I first started the Institute, I was running one of our women's business centers, and she was one of my clients there. So I'm so happy to see how much you have accomplished from then to now. And she actually is a part of another program, which I'll talk about later if there's time. But those just are a few examples.
Very good. Thank you, Roberta. Same question to you, Crystal, except you might want to talk a little bit more, if you can, about some of the clean energy things you got planned.
Sure. So for those who may not know, like I said, EPA put out the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. The awards were just made in April, so we are still working through the details. But what we hope, so out of the coalition, what self-help will be doing is we'll be making loans to lenders for them to make low-cost products. We will be doing the consumer side, so think solar, electric vehicles, think energy efficient appliances, anything that kind of goes into your home, individual homeowners. Our partner, Calvert, will be doing the small business and the facilities work. And so when you think of products, right? So think of a grocery store convenience owner who has inefficient lighting and has old freezers and coolers, doing a loan to that. When you think of a delivery truck or a restaurant that does deliveries, their ability to change over their vehicles to electric vehicles, right? When you think about a small business that actually owns parking space, they'll be able to put electric chargers in their parking space and be able to charge rent for those electric chargers, right? Each of those things will not only be a benefit to the environment, but it also saves those business owners in their utility bills, or it creates revenue. And so back to the earlier conversation, it's not black, it's not white, it's not brown, it's green, right? This is about both helping the economy, helping the environment, and then also helping the owner.
Wow, incredible, thank you. So back to you, Harriet. You in Wake Forest?
Our facility is in Roseville.
It's in Roseville, okay. Your loan, your business has helped your family and your community as well. Yes. How has it really impacted those two?
So as I said, we started in a warehouse, and through the M&F loan, we were able to build a 5-acre facility in Roseville, North Carolina, which allows us to house 4 indoor volleyball courts and 4 outdoor sand courts. And that has provided an opportunity for young people in the area. As Raleigh, Roseville, Wake Forest is growing, young people are looking for activities to get involved in. It's an avenue for them to get involved and stay active. And it has allowed the people in Roseville, in the town of Roseville, Wake Forest, and the surrounding areas to provide an activity for the young people besides sitting on their phones, besides playing video games. And as the town is growing, our doors are continuously being knocked on. The town of Roseville has asked us to partner with them with their parks and recs to provide other opportunities for the young people to stay active. And we are grateful for the relationship, going back to that, with M&F Bank, because I remember seeing a video on there where they said they're small enough to know you and large enough to serve you. And I think that that is important, and that's the environment that we're trying to create. We're small enough to know you. It's important to know our young people and to let them know that they are a valuable part of this community, and we're large enough to serve you. So thank you, M&F, for the relationship, and thank you for helping us make it a successful venture.
I think we should steal that slogan, small enough to know you and large enough to serve you. We're going to steal that slogan. Back to you, Harriet, for the final question for all of our panelists. For you, though, What advice would you give to other small business owners? And they got a few in the room, so what would you tell them?
I would tell them to be patient, and while you're in the meantime, work on you, as they talked about earlier, those credit scores, building up your financials. If it wasn't for my husband and I being financially smart throughout our journey in life, I probably would not be sitting here. Your 401ks, your 457s, making sure you're paying your bills on time. That is all important, because yes, we want to go to these institutions to ask them to provide us with funding, but I also think it's important that they see that you're serious about your own personal funding, and what are you doing with your personal life that would encourage them to support you on your journey to providing a service or a business venture that you're looking into. So I would say make sure you internally look at yourself and make sure that you're doing those positive things, that when you walk into the doors of these financial institutions, that they are aware that you're serious about the journey that you want to be on.
Great advice. Thank you so much. Travis, last question for you. M&F has been around for 107 years?
17.
117
Yes,
years, which is amazing. What are some ways that you all are helping, continue to help people overcome obstacles and become business owners?
Well, we believe wholeheartedly that we meet business owners where they are, wherever their situation is, wherever they are financially, wherever they are in their lives, and we start there in terms of building a relationship and trying to find a solution. And as Brother Bryant said earlier, trying to find a way to say yes. We want to find a way to say yes. So we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to listen. We'll continue to ask the tough questions. We'll continue to give homework if that needs to happen. But we'll do those things in an effort to continually try to find a way to say yes. We will continue to impart knowledge and skills from a financial education perspective. We're going to get very well versed, Crystal, in the greenhouse gas financing area, so that we can put some of that capital out and help you do that. We're just going to continue working hard internally so that we can be our best externally.
Outstanding. Wow. Outstanding. Roberta, your last question. You all also provide TA. You help people become better at what they do. What kind of ways do you leverage their strengths they already have to help them become better? How do you all do that?
So I mentioned earlier that we have 4 women's business centers across 2 states, 3 in North Carolina, 1 in Virginia, 2 of which are located on a HBCU campus. So we provide technical assistance to those that need it in communities that need it. We also have another program, which I know we have limited time, through the Aspen Institute, which is a national organization that provides good jobs. It's a good jobs initiative that keeps businesses that have employees, keeps them stable and keeps their employees stable. So we do those kind of things. We also have a program with the USDOT that we provide technical assistance to clients across the Southeast that are in transportation. So it is not only just the lending aspect, and of course, ICAP does lending, does TA as well, but we partner internally and we partner externally. So I would say that, for any CDFI or any bank for that matter, definitely work together. As Crystal mentioned, we all know each other up here. Pleasure to meet you. But we've all been in this business for a while, and we don't think we can do it alone. Crystal, not alone. So it's just really about doing things together and sharing the resources that we all have.
Great. Very last question, which I changed, Crystal, for you. I hope you don't hit me later on. But you and I, along with so many others, had the honor of being mentored for decades by the late Andrea Harris. And if she were here now, what would she say in this environment?
So you're gonna make me tear up. So I know all of us. So it was mentioned, like 4 years ago, we would not have been in this building, but it was also 4 years ago that we lost Miss Harris. And so she was an amazing force. And if she was here, number one, she would be so proud of all of us sitting up here, because we were all of her mentees. And it didn't matter if you were old or young, black, white, from Henderson which I mean, I feel like everything came out of Henderson. You know, wherever you were from, she always took you under her wing. So one, she would be proud to see us up here. I think the second thing she would say is to get to work. Like, it's great to have these conversations. It's great to put these conversations together. And we are so blessed and privileged to be the recipients of some of this money that has come from Treasury. And there's so much work to be done. And that's what she would say. And so for y'all who are leaving here and getting on the highway, and I saw your post, there's a sign that memorializes her. Stop by that sign and then get to do the work that she laid her life for.
So we will all hold our tears and get to work and let Ms. Harris have the last word for today, for this session. So thank you all.
All right, family, I'm going to end it right there. That was the Freedmen's Forum. First and foremost, I just want to say that we have 270 live viewers. There's a reason why I stress these views lately. And of course, most of these views are coming from Twitter, not from YouTube. So I know some people are on YouTube and they're looking like, wait a minute, I only see, no, on Twitter, that's where, let me see exactly what the number is on Twitter. And there's a reason why I'm bringing the numbers up for this specifically. So on Twitter, we have 251 live viewers. So, you know, that means we have what, 19 on YouTube or something like that. Now, on their YouTube channel, they only had 79 live viewers by the time this ended. So that means that we have spread the message about this forum way more than the Treasury Department did. That very channel, and I should have showed y'all that before I actually closed the window out so you all could see it. First and foremost, this was way better than last year. Like, I want to give a fair critique because I understand political pandering, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. See, last year, when they had Freedmen get up there and speak, they only spoke about Trump and policy that they didn't like and don't say gay laws in Florida, while the Hispanic communities were speaking about the millions and millions of dollars that they were able to access and create employment opportunities for newly arriving immigrants in this country. In this particular stream, we watched as, and I know the language is off, right? We don't like, let me see, we don't like this right here, POC and women, because we know what that signifies when we're looking at you know, our people specifically. Hold on. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. So where was I? Now, when I look at the people that they had up there, right? Because John Hope Bryant was there last year. I believe he was the one that was there last year speaking about his mother's home on Martha's Vineyard, etc. Just a bunch of irrelevant stuff. Nothing to do with what that forum was supposed to be about, which is the distribution of federal funds through CDFIs, SBCIs, and all of the different MDIs, right? And, you know, I have all of those pages pulled up for those of you who are actual members of United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. That was what we spoke about during our last membership meeting. And we're going to build on that. So for those of you, first and foremost, that would like to become members of our organization, let me put this in the chat, man. Let me put this in the chat. And this is obviously going to go on, and I'll put the link on my Twitter wall as well, because we are developing think tanks so that we can delve into this issue and make sure that these funds are not passing our communities by, right? We don't know about this. We don't know about CDFI. Even when we were reading Project 2025, as it's called, last night, there were programs in there, policy programs that administrations have been utilizing for decades that we never heard. Let me speak for myself. I've never heard of before. And the brothers on the panel, the other BTP members, had never heard of before. We don't know about these things. So there seems to be a filter when it comes to our community and having access to these funds. So let me put that membership link, and I'm putting that on the live video on Twitter for anybody that would like to join our organization. We are about work. We're not about talk. We are about work. We talk when we have to. Right now, we have to talk about this Freedmen's Bank Forum. Right now, it's political season. We have to talk about politics. We have to talk about organizing so that those words will lead to action, because that's what we are about over here. And so, you know, as Brother Judicially Affirmed said, they don't want anyone to know about it. They just want to check a box and say that they're doing it. The problem here is that many of these funds are being operated by people that have political agendas, like the women that we were just listening to and the brother on the stage that were talking about the banks and the CDFIs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they keep that in their circle and they utilize it for their means. And so when you have a state that flips blue, like a North Carolina, and you have an organization that you have an administration that wants to keep the state blue, then they're going to pour funds into these CDFIs and MDIs, SSBCIs, et cetera. And what the black boule, right, for lack of a better term, that's what we call those people that are elitists among us. We just simply use that blanket term, the black boule. What they do is they make sure that their people that they are politically connected with get on first. But what the Hispanics do is they do the same thing, but they extend that funding to their community in a way that, like when I'm in, let's say, Charlotte, right? And I'm going to be moving operations to North Carolina. Let me just put that out there, because this state is popping, as we could see with this forum. And after traveling through this state and several others, I've decided that North Carolina should be one of the main headquarters for United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. So I'm going to put that out there. And in my visits to Charlotte, North Carolina, I see a lot of homeless freedmen. I juxtapose that with a lot of strip malls and little areas that are purely Hispanic businesses, restaurant, nightclub, automotive shop. And they, and we could break that up, right? The tire shop, engine, brakes. They'll have 3 of those on a strip every couple hundred feet. They're killing them out here. Our people, we don't have those things. When you go into Freedmen areas with Freedmen-owned businesses, what we're looking at is blight. And the stores that are owned in these areas are owned, especially in North Carolina, in Charlotte. Let me be specific, because I've traveled to Raleigh and Durham. I got fam up there, the people I grew up with. But in Charlotte, what I'm seeing is that the people that own the stores and the businesses in the Freedmen neighborhoods are usually Indians, people from India. Let me be specific. And the people that are tilling the grounds, doing the landscape work, the people that are working the construction sites are about 86, 87% Mexican / Hispanic. So these funds are not being divvied up in a way that is useful for American freedmen to build themselves up. So you can go to a city like Raleigh where possibly what John Hope Bryant said is true about high credit scores, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know if that was specifically for our people. I don't know. I don't think he specified that. But in that, I can tell you that it's not the same as Charlotte, traveling to both places. Charlotte has its money. Charlotte definitely has its money. But a lot of the businesses that I see popping up there are Ethiopian businesses, Nigerian restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. I hardly see any Freedmen restaurants. Freedmen are heavy in the club scene out here, but for the most part, a lot of the restaurants that I'm seeing, unlike Atlanta, where you see a lot of Freedmen restaurants, are non-Freedmen. And so when I look at this bank forum, of course, we hear the same rhetoric, right? And I took a bunch of notes. I took a bunch of notes. I may go into some of this stuff, but what I'm seeing is an opportunity for us. This is why we have our nonprofit, a legitimate 501c3 organization, United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, and we are establishing branches right now in across the country, and it is incumbent upon us to understand these resources, to access these resources, so that we can build up our political war chest. See, when you understand the political nature of what we just watched, you're able to see how the people at the top of Black society, right, quote unquote Black society, the elites, those who have access to the funding, get to influence everybody underneath the pyramid. They get to run the ads on the radio stations, on the Black radio stations that say, keep Biden and Harris in office. Somebody asked the question in the live chat, why do they keep heaping praise and worship on Biden and Harris? Well, these are the elites. These are the people that are getting the money from this administration through these pass-throughs, these CDFIs, these MDIs, these SSBCIs, et cetera, et cetera. We're not getting that money. So when you're looking at a Jim Clyburn in South Carolina, you're trying to figure out why he's so powerful, and those people that, because I went to his fish fry last year. I went and observed. I didn't go inside. I wasn't kicking out no $100 for no plate. I was like, I'm good. I'm good. That's not going to happen. But I did go to the event, and the next day I went to the Democratic convention in South Carolina, where they were holding an election for who would be the chair of the DNC's South Carolina branch. And I was there to support a brother by the name of Brandon Upson, because even though he's a Democrat, we align on many things. It's funny saying that, right? Even though he's a Democrat, the Democrat is supposed to align with us regardless, but we find that is just not the case. It's just not the case. They really do not align with us. So we have to take it upon ourselves now to understand what these things are that are being discussed in this Freedmen's Forum. We need to understand, how does this look moving forward with a Republican administration that claims that these immigrants are coming over here taking Black jobs? How are they doing that? Well, they're getting funded through many of these initiatives that are coming from the federal government, regardless of administration. So now we go sit down and we talk to the Republican administration and we say Freedmen funds should focus on Freedmen first. If there's allocations for other groups, then they should be secondary. They should never be on an equal footing. Many of these people came here legally. We just have to start thinking. If we start thinking, we'll literally save ourselves. That's the name of the game. That's the name of the game at this point. So again, our organization, we are taking the steps necessary to, educate ourselves on these funds and on these issues, inflation acts, reinvestment acts, et cetera, et cetera. We can no longer sit idly by and just complain about the people that are surpassing us, when in fact we should be making inroads to access this finance so that we could reverse the blight in our own communities. In turn, our own communities will then thank us. And when we run our political, I'm giving game right now, because this is what our organization is gearing up for. And so I'm giving game right now. I'm giving game right now because you witnessed it. You just sat there and witnessed it. And we witnessed it last year, but we were angry. I remember Ali, man, we jumped on the call after that last forum, man. Ali was pissed off listening to them Hispanics talk about how they was divvying up millions and billions of dollars while our people got up there talking about Trump and don't say gay laws in Florida. So now we got a different perspective of how this Freedmen Forum fund is supposed to operate, and looking at who should be the faces of it, Freedmen faces, although they have their political leaning. I don't even want to say leanings. They are they're staunch Democrats, right? But the fact is that we, as a fledgling political movement with voices such as mine and Ali's and Sister Antonia's and Ibrahim, I mean, I could name all Sister Roz and the DMV, etc. I mean, I could just name a bunch of names of individuals that are a part of this nationwide network. You know, the non-glory hogs. Yes, that's a little shot for those that know who I'm shooting at, and those that know that I'm shooting at them. The non-glory hogs. But I mean, it's on us now. I think that we've seen enough. We know the blueprint. Me sitting up here on YouTube is not going to move anything if we cannot get off of these online platforms and meet behind the scenes and hammer out plans so that we can become the conductors of these funds so that our communities could get better. I first started visiting Charlotte about 2 years ago, and like really visiting heavy. And I started to notice all of the homeless freedmen, especially last year. Like, wow, this is crazy. There's nothing going on out here. You drive up, what's that street? The Sugar Creek area. And I'm like, this is crazy. You keep going up about 20 minutes and it just looks good. It looks great. And all the people that live there are Indians. I'm like, whoa. What's going on here? This isn't even. How can the people that have been here for generations be living in such squalor, while people that just migrated over here and could barely speak a lick of English be prospering? Something is wrong here. And that's due in large part to the fact that many of our politicians are simply not doing what they need to do insofar as directing those funds toward our people and our communities. So yes, I see the I've seen our comments with our people in the chat, and most of those comments are warranted, man. Most of those comments are warranted. But now it is, like I said, it is incumbent upon us to take this information, form our think tanks, and simply start moving. We got to start moving on this stuff now. Join United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. This is a part of what we're doing as an organization. The fight for reparations is not going to get put to the back burner. This helps our fight because, again, I'm giving out game, y'all. I'm giving out game. What you do when you help those communities, like the ones that I just spoke about in that Sugar Creek area of Charlotte, North Carolina, like the area in Atlanta around that Greyhound bus station. I mean, you could pick a spot in South Carolina. Geesh. But when you start getting resources to these communities and you start building these communities, right? Especially if you have a pass-through agency yourself to do these things, which is something that we're working on as well, then those who would be our people, they will show their gratitude by simply electing the people that we prop up. So that's why you see a lot of Biden, Harris praise on this platform today. They were propping up the people that helped put money into the funds that they were able to control and make sure that their people are getting what they need and whatever programs and nonprofits that they need to help fund via grants and venture capitalist funds, et cetera, they're getting that funding. And so they should prop up Biden and Harris. It's only right. It's only right. My question is, what are we going to do? Because we know that most of those funds are not reaching the people in our communities. And from what I was able to ascertain from my research into a lot of those funds in the north, in places like Raleigh and Durham, especially, Hispanics are accessing most of those funds. They are building their political base. They are learning civics. The Office of New Americas, like, I don't think people understand what's going on. This is why we at Be the Power taught for the first couple years. They said success leaves clues. And so we follow a successful organization from the 1920s that taught civics its first couple years before it started to spring into political action. And that's what we did here on this platform. We wrote a whole civics guide that I'm supposed to be finishing up soon, but we've been so busy. But I gotta finish that updated civics guide because it's needed. But nevertheless, that's what this platform is dedicated to. This platform is dedicated to us uplifting our people. Freedmen first. Freedmen first. So, I mean, we could complain, and I'm not saying that our complaints are not sound, not founded on something that's righteous. Our complaints are real. But we also now know that we can do something about it. We can do something about it. We can be the pivotal players. And yes, we are going to meet the same resistance that we're meeting with the Pan-Africanists that don't want us to cut their grift off. Oh, we're going to meet that resistance. This is just how politics works. So all of the things that we've been dealing with the past few years have been a practice run. See, I study the art of war. Like I'll tell y'all all the time, I'm heavily into those Robert Greene books. I probably listen to them every day on Audible. I'm just saying. And you got to grow a really thick skin to do this work. And right now, you know, my skin is getting alligator and crocodile level. You see, because I understand that, you know, with great power comes great responsibility, and this fledgling movement has some very, very powerful players. That's why we get attacked the way that we do by especially people on the left, because they see the potential that we wield as a powerful fledgling political movement. And, you know, they want to knock it down a peg. It's just as simple as that. So, I mean, I don't know. I got some notes here, man. I don't know if I want to go through the notes. I think my little discourse that I'm having with my peoples right now is kind of sufficient. But you know, a lot of the things that we heard weren't uplifting to our communities because they simply weren't speaking to our communities. When you talk about black and brown and all of those different things, then you're watering down the effectiveness of even utilizing the name Freedmen or Freedmen's Bank Forum in the first place. When you have a Treasury Secretary, what is his name? Wally Adeyemo, I believe it is. Let me see. I wrote it down somewhere. I think that's his name. Who came to America when he was 2 years old, sitting in such a powerful government position. John Hope Bryant said, you know, this guy basically helps determine sanctions on whom America deems as bad guys, Russia, China, et cetera, et cetera. That should be one of us. That should be one of us sitting there. Flick said, black and brown equals not you Negroes. And that's a fact. That's a fact. Somalia against Pan-Africanism. And this is somebody from Somalia that, you know, we interact with at times on Twitter. And it doesn't, if you remove your bias, you're able to see that what we're saying is real. I don't care what country you come from. And you're able to say, you know what, that's really messed up. I tell a story all the time about this West Indian woman that I did security for in Brooklyn, in Bed-Stuy. What's wrong with my camera? And she said, I was trying to get loans so that I could purchase the dilapidated buildings in Bedford-Stuyvesant. The Jews were buying them up for $1, renovating them. I was like, this is an idea that I had. We had people coming out of Section 8. I was like, what would happen if I owned 2 or 3 of these brownstones and I didn't have to worry about rent because Section 8 was, you know, depositing those checks? I wouldn't stress that $67 that especially Freedmen families would have to pay. Wouldn't care about that. As long as I'm getting the money direct, you know, and this was my thinking. Man, I was going every day, doing the security at this laundromat. I mean, I had my notebook, my papers, the stuff that I had printed out. And she seen me one day and I was getting frustrated. And you know, she was like, what's going on? And I explained to her what I was trying to do and how the doors were closing in my face. And she said, you know, it seems like the American government has something against you American blacks. He says, for instance, us Caribbean blacks, we come to America and we thrive. She said, this is my second laundromat. She had a daycare center. She said, that's my second daycare. She said, it seems like when we come up from the islands, the government, and I'm paraphrasing some of these parts because I can't remember verbatim, lays out the red carpet for us. But when it comes to you Black Americans, you American blacks, that was the terminology she used. She said, it seems like they are against you. This is what she told me. She said, it seems like they always set these obstacles in y'all's way so that y'all can't succeed. And she had to come to grips with that reality as she sat there watching me struggle and putting, trying to put this thing together. I wanted to own a couple of them brownstones in Brooklyn. I was living in Bed-Stuy at the time. I seen the play. I went through the shelter system in New York to get the Section 8 voucher, because that's how you got your own crib in New York City. For those that know, you know. I'm like, wait a minute, this is a nice little hustle right here. If you could master it, the Jews were literally buying up these buildings in Bedford-Stuyvesant for $1. And they had the capital. They had the capital to not just purchase the building. I couldn't even purchase the building for the $1. But let's just say that I did. Would the banks had given me, an American freedman, the loan that I needed to fix up that building with my business plan showing that over this amount of time, with rents coming in from, let's just say it was 8 units per brownstone, and I had 3 brownstones, that I would be able to pay back the loan? I don't think so. And I don't base that off of a pessimistic view of my own thinking. I base that off of the history of our country and how they've dealt with us in this country. And what that woman said, it seems like the American government has something against you American blacks. So those who come to that realization and they see this, well, naturally they're going to help point it out and say, you know what, that is messed up. That is messed up. What can I do to help? I'm here if you're here, right? And I'm benefiting from the system, because if you're here as a Somalian, I'm pretty certain your people, if you are in that Minnesota and that Midwest region, your people are good. Your people are good. So, I mean, this is a story I've told several times. I don't like telling stories over and over again. It makes you feel old. You know how your parents start getting older and they keep telling them stories over and over and over again. It's like, here we go. So I try to catch myself even with my own children, because I've heard them say that, Dad, you told us the story like 1,000,000 times. I'm like, all right, I got to catch myself. So I try not to tell certain stories over and over and over again, because that's what old people do. And we never want to get old, right? But it's a part of the life process. But anyway, back to what I was speaking about with this Freedmen's Bank Forum. We can take this thing over. We have an opportunity to do that now. We have an opportunity to take this thing over. This is as simple as that. And the way we do that is simply by organizing. And for those of you that have been following us for the past few years, and when I say following us, I mean following our work. We don't come in trying to beat our chest as if, we're saying follow the leader. We're saying work with us. Let's work together. We've been saying that from day one. Go back and start from the beginning of the Be the Power videos. And that YouTube channel is now called Freedmen University. You'll hear it. You'll hear it. But it seems like because of what happened to us in this country, everybody wants to pull us a different way. Everybody wants to pull a different way, and there never seems to be any cohesion. But for those of you who are serious about the uplift of our people, let's work together. For those of you that are not a part of an organization, join United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. Judicially affirmed said, tell them you are reciting life lessons, not telling stories, which I have said to them. That's a fact. I have said to them, I said, there's a message in it. So even if I repeat it, I'm not just repeating it because I've forgotten that I've told it to you. It's spurred by something that you've said or have experienced. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to stay on here too much longer, but I wanted to stream that event because a lot of people don't know about these events. And like I said, we have more people watching it through our live stream by the end of the stream, the number was 265 people were watching it live here on our platform. That's the collective numbers between YouTube and Twitter than they were watching on the live stream for YouTube. Now, I don't know if they live streamed on Twitter. So I just thought about that. So I'm not sure. But insofar as YouTube is concerned, there was only 79 people watching it. And if they didn't stream it on on Twitter, then it goes to show that we've helped spread that message further than anybody else. And we have to continue to do that. We have to continue to let it be known that there are funds that we can access, that we can build up our communities, that we can go into our communities and help reverse the blight, that we could raise up our young men and our young women. Notice that this platform and every other Democratic platform, their hyper focus was on women. John Hope Bryant got up at the end of his speech and, let's give it up for Black women. See, the Democratic Party wants to divide our families because, Black men are not hearing a lot of the things that are espoused by the Democratic Party. They're just not. And they know that. And so a part of their job is to keep our family unit separated. See, that's not a Republican thing. Now, yeah, we went over Project 2025 last night, and we seen the Republicans plan to use the church and wield, which was the word they used, government, to foster some form of familial, I don't know, reconciliation, solidification. I don't know. I can't even remember what word they use, but no, we can't use the church to do that. We can't use government to do that. Just can't. It's just not how societies work. It's not how societies work, man. So, but what we can do is we can take nonprofits like United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen and stress the importance of family, to stress the importance of man, woman, and child, because that's important, because that's how you extend the bloodline. There's no other way to extend the bloodline except with men and women. And that's just as simple as that. I don't care what nobody says. You would never convince me otherwise. You can't expand the bloodline by aborting your children. And when you have the proper resources in place, you can then go to our communities and tell them that, look, there's help. There's help. We have available resources to help men learn the proper skills so that they could go into the workforce, not as low skill workers, but as high skill workers. See, this thing is missing from our communities. It's missing. And we don't have nobody in our communities ensuring that these things happen. These are the things that United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen and Be the Power and another nonprofit that we're going to be starting really, really soon. I'm not going to mention that at the moment. People like to steal your ideas and Negrofy it. They steal your ideas and Negrofy it. Right? It's like, we're going to muddy up everything they're trying to do. Like, no, you're not. You're just going to get a handful of people on Twitter to rock out with what you're trying to rock out with. That's all you're doing. What we're doing is working, and it will work because we have successful blueprints for us to follow. And this Freedmen thing is the most important piece out of everything, which makes this forum that much more important. Makes it that much more important. So they have Freedmen at this forum, right? But they don't know about this thing that we know, which means that next year, it should be us. It should be us. And they're more than likely going to have a Republican administration next year. So then more than likely it's going to be us. I see you, Riri. I see you. You know, that's what they do. That's what they do. It is what it is. They Negrophile stuff. They think they muddying things up and hurting us, but they're not. They're not. So you know, I just wanted to get on and speak to that and stream the forum, and again, join United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. Visit our website, usadof.org. Subscribe to our email list. Visit our website, bethepower.org. Subscribe to our email list. We're doing great things. We're just not advertising them at the moment. Those that know, but our organization is set up to do great things. And we are in the second phase of what we set our organization up to do. So the educational aspect of it is over on social media, I should say, the real world. We're behind the scenes, literally behind the scenes, talking to local officials across the country, Zoom meetings and personal meetings, educating them as they watch DEI crash and burn as it should, because it's something that didn't benefit us anyway. So, you know, yes, brother, judicially affirmed. When you visit the site, be sure to sign the petition. Be sure to sign the petition, because we're trying to urge this administration, being that the president, Joe Biden, told Black Americans, I got your back because you had my back. This is what he said. Okay, well, impanel a commission for reparations then. Sign that petition. It's right on the website, usadof.org. Go on the website right now, sign that petition. There's another active petition that we had about this. Matter of fact, let me pull that up before I get off of here. Let's pull that up. A shout out to everybody that's watching. So this is the petition we did 3 years ago when we first noticed this hijacking. And it was the first forum that was held under the Biden administration. Stop Biden administration from using Freedmen's Bank legacy for all minority groups. We made noise, fam. Look, we had 3,656 signatures. That's great. That's great. And because we don't have the political support, like I like to say, we are but baby birds, fledgling eagles in the nest, flapping our political wings. But the flaps, those flaps are warnings to the rest of this nation and the rest of the world that the American freedmen are about to soar. 3,656 signatures. And this is still an active petition. This is still an active petition. Just saying. Just saying, family. So shout out to my sister Antonia. Shout out to the New England freedmen, man. Some people have no idea of the work that's going on, man. The real boots on the ground, or in the case of my sister, stilettos on the ground works that's happening in you know where we reside. Where we reside. For myself personally, it's time for me to start making my forays into political office. So that's something that I'm planning as I get into phase 2 of what it is that we're doing. And I want to give a shout out to my Be the Power brothers. I want to give a shout out to my brother Ali, my brother Josh, my brother Ibrahim. And I also want to give a shout out to the other founders that helped build this platform up, my brother Logic and my brother Grim. You know, they helped build this platform up. And just because you don't see them does not mean that they will not be honored on this platform. They will always be honored on this platform, because without them, especially brother Logic, we're not at this point. So, you know, I gotta give a shout out to the founders. And Shout out to United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. It's too many members to name, obviously, but y'all know who y'all are. Shout out to our board. We have a powerful group of people that are, that are doing some work and that are enthusiastic about moving this thing forward. So I'm gonna end this, fam. You already know I'm gonna end it with the motto of our platform, which is don't just fight the power, become the power. And then and only then will you have the power to make a change. With that, I say peace.